Welcome back to the Straight Talk Podcast, episode 49. I'm your host, as always, SESvince, and joining me is my co-host, as always, the one and only Basharat. How you doing, Bosh?
Doing good, doing good.
Yeah, man, we're here talking NBA basketball once again, but we're not here by ourselves. We're joined by at Cage IQ from the Bloodline Entertainment Network, aka Bakley, aka Dan Bakley. How you doing, Dan? You're finally on the podcast, man. You've been
Finally, after months.
after months of asking, hey, when can I be on the podcast to talk basketball? We made it happen, man. We weren't trying to avoid you. It's just,
He was chiming in on the live chat. We saw him.
yeah, he'd be in the live chat. So thanks for joining us, Bakley.
Yeah.
Happy to have you and talk some basketball, man. It's been a long time. We usually talk wrestling, man. It's a nice change of pace.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people don't know that I'm into basketball, but I watch it a lot, and I don't have that many people to talk to about it. So
Yeah, you mostly cover MMA and wrestling on your podcast. I'll give you a chance to plug your stuff as well. But before we get started, guys, I just want to remind everyone to go ahead and like, comment, subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast. We're available just about everywhere audio podcasts can be found. Just search up SESvince in your favorite podcast player, whether that's Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We're there. Go to youtube.com/SESvince if you want to watch the video version of the episode. And subscribe to us there. And just keep an eye out for us because we might be changing some things up in the future. But for right now, we're going to keep things as is. And like I mentioned, we're going to be talking NBA basketball. And it's been a minute. It's been exactly 2 weeks since the start of NBA free agency. It's kind of died down for the most part. We had one major move that was announced, and we'll talk about that today. It was a sign and trade involving the Dallas Mavericks and Phoenix Suns. And we're going to kick things off with this episode, guys, with probably the thing that's still got everyone kind of like on the edge of their seats trying to see what's going to happen. And that's, of course, the two trade requests from Damian Lillard and James Harden. James Harden was supposed to be a free agent if he didn't pick up his player option. There were a lot of rumblings that he would go to Houston. He picked up his player option and requested a trade, and preferably to the LA Clippers, but he was not the only one. Damian Lillard finally requested that trade out of Portland. I felt like it was the writing was on the wall, you guys, especially once they took Scoot Henderson with the number 3 pick and they didn't trade him that same night. You got to give the keys to the castle to Scoot Henderson. Let him ball out. Let him be the new guy on the team. Find a new spot for Damian Lillard. Depending on who you ask, some people are on Lillard's side. Some people are on the Blazers' side. Obviously, his representatives had said that he wants to go to Miami. He won't be happy if you trade him anywhere other than Miami. So they're trying to like put a stranglehold as to where the Portland Trail Blazers can trade him. Their president or general manager of basketball operations has gone on to state that we're going to do what's best for our franchise. And I don't care if it takes months to get this trade to happen. It'll take months to get it to happen. So they're in no rush to make it happen. Obviously, the big deal out there is Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, or Kyle Lowry. Maybe a combination of their first round pick this year. I'm trying to blank his name. If you guys got the name on their draft pick, I know he was like he's a Mexican born guy, and
Javier Vasquez or something like that.
Javier Vasquez. Let me see.
No, it was
UCLA. He played for UCLA. Yeah, it's Javier, and then I can't say the last name right. Right.
Let me see. Oh, Jaime Vasquez.
Jaime
Vasquez.
Okay.
Dude, I'm the Mexican from the three of us. I'm wearing an LWO shirt, and I can't recall the one Mexican that gets drafted in the NBA draft this year. But yeah, so they can include Jaime Vasquez, but they can't do it until like I think 60 days after he signed his rookie contract. So they still have to wait a 2-month period to include him in this trade. There's also Nikola Jovic, their draft pick from last year. They can include. Right now, I've heard that they've included 2 first-rounders included in this deal, but it's not enough because Portland's not really interested in Tyler Hero. So I'll start off with Bakley because, he's making this appearance on the show for the first time. Where do you side on this whole Damian Lillard trade request? And are you on Lillard's side where it's like, hey, I've been loyal for 11 years, trade me to where I want to go, you do right by me? Or are you on the Blazers side where it's like, no, we got to do what's best for the franchise?
first off, I can see where both sides are going. Like he's 33, he wants to win. He's done as much as he can in Portland as he's done. He's been like a workhorse there. He came from a lower level school and just came out of nowhere and started out early. And it was him and McCollum. They've done a lot. They brought in Nurkic over there. They tried to bring so many pieces that it's just not worked. So now he wants to kind of be selfish and go elsewhere, which is fine. And then you got on the other hand, you got Portland, which have done everything that they can to make him happy. They did take Scoot Henderson, but they said, we're going to take him, but we're taking him with the expectance that maybe Lillard comes back and we're going to fit them together if we can. If we can't, then we're going to give the keys to the castle for Scoot. And of course, now you're in a scenario where you gotta come to an agreement on something. And I'm with Portland here just because I feel like they've tried to do everything right by Lillard. They didn't say, no, we're not going to do what you want. We're not going to just like, we'll be open to anything you want to do. You've done everything you could possibly do for us. We just didn't win. So let's go the separate ways, but we're going to do it within our realm. We want to make sure we get as much as possible for you for your worth. We're not going to take like a discount. And especially with him, he's saying right now, I'm only picking the Heat. That's who I want to go to. And usually teams agree to that. But it's like, I've been hearing things where, just like you said, they're giving up like Tyler Hero, they're giving up Robinson, 2 draft picks, and then a Vasquez. But then I've also heard where they're just like, I just want to give up Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and a pick. And that's it. And to me, it all depends on what it actually is, what the actual trade is. I think the first one would be perfect because then you can get young. You just got Scoot Henderson. You get Tyler Hero, who can still come off the bench. He's a sharpshooter. We'll have to see how he does coming off that major injury that he had. But this is a guy that can shoot from downtown, shoot inside. He can be that perfect 6th man for you. And then you still bring in a young kid in Vasquez, a big man shooter in Robinson, and then 2 draft picks to work with in a town in Portland where it's not a big city. You got to work with who you can through the draft. You're not going to be able to bring in a lot of big names free agency because it's Portland. It's not a big city. So it's kind of like in like baseball, it's like Tampa Bay, where it's a small city, not a lot of people watch. You got to be able to do it a certain way, not just like a New York, an LA, a Miami, a Philadelphia. They can't do it that same way. So I feel like maybe once they wait that 60 days, you go with that. But I like the fact that they're taking their time. They're not rushing. They're not letting Dean dictate everything, but they're still honoring what they're going to do. They still want to let him go like he wants to. It's just going to be on their time.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. What about you, Bosch? What are your thoughts on this whole Lillard situation?
So, like I said previously, I'm not like when Lillard insisted he wanted to stay, and just try to grow with Portland and try to bring a championship to Portland by attracting free agents, trades, whatever it was. I respect that. I wasn't part of the whole crowd of public that was trying to push him to say no, he needs to request a trade. He needs to battle for a championship, at a better chance. I'm down with letting him battle on his own terms, man. I respect it. Dirk managed to finally pull one off eventually when it seemed unlikely, and he pulled it off against one of the most dominant, groupings of players that the NBA's ever seen in LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. So I wasn't opposed to that. Right now, it's almost odd. It's like, okay, Portland got the best prospect they could have gotten in this time, right, in Scoot, and now Dame wants to request a trade. Okay, I understand that, to a large extent, because now it's like, well, clearly this prospect is gonna, as you guys say, need to have the keys turned over to him at some point. On the other hand, like, I don't know if their team this year, having re-signed Jeremy Grant, having gotten, Shaedon Sharpe a year of experience, have Anthony Simons, really becoming into a solid player, and those guys being trade chips as well, along with Scoot, that this is any worse than the situation he's had the last few years. So for that, to me, the timing is it's like it's almost too late. Like if you were going to do this, you should have done it earlier. Now, if you're doing it now, it's to make it only one team. It's kind of like that. I don't know if I want to say it rubs me the wrong way because Dame can do whatever he wants.
Right.
To me, it's okay. That's all you want to go to. Say that, and that'll depress your market around the NBA for the other teams. But that's on them. Like you want to do what you want to do. But normally you'd see like a list of 2, 3, or 4 teams, right? Like that's the situation generally that like back in KD's original request, that's how it was. Harden, had a list of a few teams. Like, generally especially if you got several years left on your contract, you give more than one team, as an option.
I think that's the biggest issue that everyone's having is that he's kind of like, for lack of a better term, like his representative and his team is just putting out that he's pouting, and he's throwing the temper tantrum almost. He's like, I want to go to Miami. Get me to the Miami. I don't want to be anywhere but Miami. It's kind of like I don't have kids, but I would imagine if your kids are hell bent on having McDonald's and you're like, there's food at home.
But it's not just that. To me, it's like, well, what about Philly? Like Philly would be a great fit for Damian
Philly
Lillard.
would be
Why
fantastic.
wouldn't you want to go play with the reigning MVP and another top line coach and Nick Nurse? Sure, he's not an Expulstra. He has his issues, but
I like Nick Nurse.
Yeah, he's proven to be a pretty damn good coach. He's won a championship. You've got solid pieces, a good general manager who knows how to like work creative trades, and Daryl Morey. So you could have added Philly. You could have added. No, I think the maybe not Brooklyn. Like it doesn't really fit.
Brooklyn was originally listed as a preferred destination for him because Mikal Bridges is one of his guys, and and that's a destination that I would like for him.
But
to
if you look at that situation, that's worse than Philly, in my opinion.
It is worse than Philly.
They'd have to give up everyone but Mikal.
And he said no to Milwaukee.
Right,
he said no, which you would think he would want to play with Giannis.
Right.
And Middleton once Middleton came back.
And that could really extend the championship window in Milwaukee. Or,
100%.
As
long as they trade Grayson Allen, the trade, I'll support Milwaukee 100%.
But you know what it is? It's the fact that they just went to the finals. They did it without a true point guard. You had Kyle Lowry, who kind of played a little bit more minutes, but he was more like a backup guard right there, and he could just be plugged in that point guard position and just add to that team.
And he has his friend Bam Adebayo, and
yeah. I will say between all the trade destinations, the landing spots, I feel like Miami is probably the most complete team that's ready to compete now. Obviously, yes, they just made it to the finals. They lost key players in Gabe Vincent, a key player in Gabe Vincent, and Max Strus. So that's going to hurt them. We'll talk about them with their new teams where they signed. But they'd only be giving up really a Tyler Hero, 2 guys that aren't in the rotation, and Jaime Jaquez.
It's Jaime Jaquez.
Jaime Jaquez.
I don't want to embarrass you on the Mexican name pronunciation, but sorry, Vince.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's okay. I'll take that one. That's fine. Jaime Jaquez, Nikola Jovic from last.
I may not be Mexican, but I did just eat it at Los Comales.
Yeah, your girl's Mexican, so you get the pass. You get the pass. You're part of the cookout. But yeah, so they're not losing much. Obviously, Tyler Hero wasn't involved in that playoff run because he got injured. Duncan Robinson, like as much as he was contributing and actually like having a little bit of a resurgence in his shooting, that's a little bit replaceable. So like you just pair up like a Lillard with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo. That's a really good team. They did bring back Kevin Love. They still have Caleb Martin as well on the team. So they got options as well. They got rid of Oladipo, unfortunately.
Well, they had to after that injury, but yeah.
And they had the biggest thing that Portland wants is the assets. They have all these assets. It reminds me of back when the Heat had Caron Butler, Dwayne Wade, and what's his name, Lamar Odom, and then they sent Butler and Odom to LA to bring in Shaq to win. They're ready to win now because they had all that talent, but they couldn't get past a certain point, and they wanted to get over the hump. So they did that big trade. It kind of reminds me of that. Miami has always done a good job of stacking talent and having like a good overall roster. It's just at times they don't have that imp at the end where they can put them over the edge.
they've been able to do the best they can without
Yeah.
having like a solid like shot creator aside from Jimmy Butler. Because when Jimmy Butler is able to get his own shot and create on offense, they're really good. Their offense is flowing great. But when he doesn't have it going, they struggle tremendously. We saw that in the playoffs. We saw that in the finals as well. And Damian Lillard would be a perfect fit. I'm an advocate that yes, I think he should like open up other options like Philly. Like it should be like
Dude, I would love to see him end up in Philly, man. But yeah,
I wouldn't, but for other reasons, for different reasons. Not because like I don't want Bakley's team to win the championship. It just the Bulls have yet to beat Joel Embiid. So
no, they did finally beat him.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that was the thing this year.
Yeah,
Right?
they did finally beat him.
He just didn't play the game.
He played, yeah.
No,
he played. He played.
Yeah.
I think he fouled out.
No,
And
you're thinking of the one where Philly still beat the Bulls because they came back. They were mad about it, and they annihilated the Bulls. And Joel didn't play the second half.
That's right.
He was partly injured and partly didn't have to because they were whipping the crap out of him.
And that's another thing with Miami is injuries. They always find a way to do good minus injuries because of the whole like team. They're able to play anybody on the team. It's just they can plug and play. At some point, you kind of have to be like, okay, we kind of have to subtract from that to add here. We need more substance in the starting lineup instead of relying too much on the full team aspect of the game. We need somebody to be able to dominate. At one point this season, literally 4 of the 5 starters were out for a substantial amount of time, and one of them, of course, being Butler. You need a guy to be able to be there and be able to have the ball, shoot, and depend on them if Butler's going to be out. And then if you bring Damon, he can do that, and vice versa. They can go back and back, hand in hand together.
Yeah, it's a lot to rely on Jimmy Butler to be a primary offensive option through 4 rounds of the playoffs, as we saw this year. Like he definitely wore down, in the Boston series, and then
he got injured in the Boston series.
He did, which happened last year too. So
yeah.
But so there's 2 things I want to know. One is Miami's package, like in a vacuum, that sounds good. You're getting a good established young player. You're getting 2, potential promising sort of young player, rookies, essentially second-year rookies, and Jovic and Jaquez, and you're getting a couple first-round picks. The problem is this isn't a vacuum, and in the context of the Miami Heat, those first-round picks are almost always going to be worthless. Well, maybe not worthless, but worth less than other first-round picks because
I like the little wordplay you had there.
Appreciate that. Because Miami doesn't tank other than that 1 year before they got LeBron. Where they ended up with the number 3 pick after number 2 pick, after Derrick Rose, and picked
Shout
Beasley.
out to Michael Beasley.
Yeah. Super cool beats. But great Twitter handle. But they don't normally tank, and they're going to be generally a good team. Their management always finds a way to pick up players. Free agents want to go there. People request trades there. So even if the stars age out, the worry is those 2 first-round picks are going to be in the 20s. Right. And like best case scenario, they might be in the teens, and that then makes it less promising. So that's kind of what the holdup is, I think, here, because and again, 2 future first round picks, established young player, and then potential young players. That's a decent package. You would take that. It's just that those 2 first round picks are going to be, less valuable first round picks than from other teams generally in the situation.
Yeah, I get that. I think my biggest holdup that I see in this whole thing, I'm more of a leaning on the player side because roles were reversed. Like there's no loyalty both ways. We saw Blake Griffin sign an extension and get traded the minute he was able to be traded to Detroit, and he still gave Detroit everything he had towards the last end of his tank his life cycle in the NBA. After that, he just became a role player. We like Isaiah Thomas, played through injury, worsened the injury. He could have gotten surgery and fixed up that injury, but he played through it in the playoffs. Had the passing of his sister, and then to get traded in the Kyrie Irving trade, that same offseason. That's why I'm look, Dame's been there for 11 years. He's tried so hard. Is he going about it the perfect way? No, but it's don't send me somewhere I can't compete for a championship. I think that's where it is. I think I
totally agree with that. I just think that there's more places than Miami that would fit that bill.
It's not like he's not that they're not be like, we're not going to send you to a championship team because all the options out there, 3 of the 4 made the playoffs and made it to the second round last year. It's just that Miami made it the farthest, so he's like,
Also, I think he just wants to play with his guy, so that's
the thing. He just wants to go play with his guy, and he wants to play in Miami where he knows other players like to play. Also,
yeah, I mean, he has done an interview in the past. I've seen the clips going around where like a few destinations were mentioned, and he like didn't mention Miami as his preferred destination. Like in a hypothetical scenario, which one of those situations, which one of those teams which you want to play, Miami was number 1. He also listed Brooklyn because of Mikal. But if I want Lillard to win the championship before he hangs it up. I desperately want that to happen. I don't want him to have an AI scenario where he just like phases out of the league and then he doesn't get a ring. Similar to Melo, although I do believe that Melo was going to get a ring if the Lakers won the championship this year.
Dame's shooting ability is going to at least allow him to be like a capable player beyond his time of being a star, which is what the problem was with AI. And, Melo's defense at the 4 was what, prevented him because his shooting ability was there, but defensively he was too much of a liability at the big position. So I think, Lillard, that's why, in a hypothetical, I think Jason Quick on The Athletic wrote an article about how Dame still has a great chance if he wanted to stay in Portland because he could transition to being, less of the primary as Scoot grows into his role. Right, and he could play off ball and still be, a very key member of a team as the young players take over. But, I get it. He wants to go play where he's still a dominant offensive force, and I'm down with that. I just think he can do it in more places than Miami. I do have one thing that I was kind of hoping for. I kind of thought, that once Brandon Miller was picked by Charlotte at number 2, and Portland had guaranteed that they were getting Scoot at 3, there's a lot of creative options where other teams could have traded in for Scoot. Like, to me, think about this. Okay, if you're the Pelicans who had trade rumors surrounding Zion, and you obviously don't want to trade Zion because of his potential, there is another possibility that would preserve both Zion's prime in New Orleans and still land them Scoot. And that would be to trade Troy Murphy and Brandon Ingram and Herb Jones. That would surround Dame. Think about that. Dame, Ingram, Trey Murphy, and Jeremy Grant. Like, that's Murphy's really
I like
good.
that, but I don't think they're any more than maybe a top 6 seed in the Western Conference, especially with the moves that a lot of these Western Conference teams have made.
I don't know, man. I think you're underrating how good like Murphy and Dame. And think about that. You still have Simons.
Think they'd give
you can
up.
still flip Simons. Like, you still flip Simons, and you have Brandon Ingram.
Yes, that's true.
Don't you think, like, Ingram is really good? He's an all-star level player.
I just don't think they'd give him up. I think if the Pelicans were to give up anyone for Scoot, I think they'd be more willing to trade Zion than they would to trade Ingram.
I think that's why Portland's so I wouldn't say eager. They're so okay with the idea of trading Dame. I think there's a feeling that they like Anthony Simon and what he has done the last 2 years, and if Lillard's going to go, at least they have him at that off the guard spot with bringing in Scoot Henderson. Maybe it would have been different if they didn't get him. They got Miller or somebody else, but it allows them to have a guy who was able to score in the 20s last year, certain games when Lillard wasn't there. Even when he was there, he was able to score 15 to 20 points. He has that experience. But I could see what he said with that. I feel like in New Orleans, they're going to break those two up because I think they are too comfortable together. You got Ingram and Zion. They both are from Duke. They both came with high value. Ingram's always hurt, but when he's playing, he's an all-star player. He could shoot lights out, rebound, pass the ball. But then you got Zion. He's also capability of that, but he gets hurt. And you had that thing that came out today that said that somebody thinks that he should go to a city where there's not a lot to eat because of all places for him to go to, he went to a food established city in New Orleans where there's so much to eat, and that's why he's overweight, because he's having the same thing early on that it's funny to say that Joel Embiid did with eating too much and then getting hurt. And then
What was
once
Embiid's? What was the food that he was that was notorious, or the
I think
drink?
I think it was McDonald's. Like he would eat a lot of like Big Macs or something like
There was
that.
there was something. I
Yeah.
can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
wasn't
then
it
there
wasn't
was-
something with the Shirley Temples too? Like he was drinking
Yes.
these. That
And
was
then-
hilarious.
And then it wasn't until like he got on like a food regimen
Yeah.
and had a nutritionist. That's when you saw the difference in Embiid. He still gets hurt, but he wasn't getting hurt as much often as he did then, and he was more in shape, and he could,
Yeah.
and it had a better part of his game. It allowed him to do better, and that's where Zion's not getting that point out across, and it might be to the point where you just got to cut ties with him, let another team deal with it, and try to get as much as possible. And then maybe you stick with Ingram because you know at least if he's healthy, he's going to produce. And he's a guy that's going to shoot a lot.
That's what was so interesting to me, because honestly, like I do think that would surround Dame with a good cast. Like in my proposed like fantasy trade of Ingram, Murphy, and Herb Jones for Scoot. But I was more intrigued with, because New Orleans still has picks coming in from LA. They've got other assets they've got coming in, and I
thought the AD trade was done. I thought it was completed.
I think because they had
I think they
had a
one
swap.
left.
Yeah, they have one left at least.
Mhm.
Because they had a swap that would have happened this year, where it looked like initially like that was going to really hurt the Lakers when
before they made the trade deadline trade to get rid of Westbrook and rebuild the team.
And before
they could have gotten the
when Zion was playing,
the
Pelicans were like in first in the West too.
Yeah, they were.
So, but no, I was going to say, like, think about that for a minute. Like, if New Orleans is able to reset where you have two potential franchise cornerstones who are very young in Zion and Scoot, and you then have the optionality of saying, well, if Zion's healthy, then we've got these two great young players. We'll be set for a decade. If Zion's not, Scoot will grow and we'll get some more lottery picks to add to this. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm gonna poke some holes in that trade. Because I don't think New Orleans does it. I think Portland does it in a heartbeat to get an all-star caliber player to pair up with Lillard in the wings and Brandon Ingram. You get a young, versatile forward that can be a 3-and-D guy in Troy Murphy. And who else was included in that?
I was saying maybe Herb Jones.
Maybe Herb Jones. Okay, they just re-signed Herb Jones, so they couldn't make that trade until like the moratorium.
Yeah, it would have to. Yeah,
it would be like sometime in December where he'd be available to trade again.
Right.
So you're giving up two of your best younger prospects and your best player because the other best player is never healthy. So Brandon, one of your top best players, in Brandon Ingram, one of your all-stars, for Scoot Henderson, the guy that just got drafted this year in the number 3 pick. That makes no sense if you're still trying to compete, because you're giving up 3 solid rotational players, 1 all-star player for a promising young player in Scoot Henderson. As much as you like Scoot Henderson, I think that's still an overpay to make that trade if you're New Orleans. If you're New Orleans, I think you hang up the phone the minute that gets offered.
But you drop in the standings this year, yes, and probably next year. But your overall long-term ceiling increases a lot.
I think the best. I think the best lateral move for them. Like, I don't think they drop that much, because you still have CJ McCollum, and you still, like, if Zion is healthy, he's going to be playing, right? But you lose so much in that trade. You can't love Scoot Henderson enough to give up a defensive young wing perimeter player in Herb Jones that you just extended.
Well, it's to
Troy
me
Murphy and
the
Ingram.
main trade is Murphy and Ingram. It would be the key. To me.
Okay, so like even if it is Ingram and Murphy, I think that's still too much to give up for Scoot. If anything, I think you want to pair up Scoot with Brandon Ingram.
And look at Portland. Didn't Matisse Thybulle just sign with the Mavs, or was that an offer sheet?
That was an offer sheet. I don't know.
They matched. Portland matched.
They matched. Okay.
Portland matched.
Because I was gonna say they would have been dumb to not match it, knowing that they traded for him, and he's a young piece as well there. So I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, damn, if they would have just gave him up, that would have been just bad for them, especially with knowing the whole Dean Lawyer thing.
But yeah, I mean, I thought it's an interesting thought experiment to me. I think it would be intriguing for the Pelicans to extend their window beyond, the Lakers, current ability to, and kind of extend it more into the future, past the Suns and Lakers windows right now.
Yeah. I'll say this finally with the Damian Lillard stuff. 2 things. The only thing I am a little bit upset with Lillard is that he waited until after they gave Jeremy Grant 5 years, $160 million to request a trade.
Man.
Like, you couldn't have waited until before they signed that big contract. Like
let me
that's
give
the
you
one
one
thing-
other. Let me give you one other kicker on that. So the contract was announced, right? And
Mhm.
initially, it was like there was a lot of talk about this could still be a really good contract because Portland can start him at the highest salary and then like decline it as it goes into the
Yeah.
so that it's still tradable in years 3, 4, and 5
Mhm.
because it'll be a declining salary. Because they matched on Matisse Thybulle, doing it that way would have put him in the luxury tax, so they couldn't do it. They had to do it the other way, which now makes his contract undesirable as it goes into the future because it's rising.
Exactly. And then on top of that, the other thing with the whole Tyler Hero hang up, I believe, like you have Anthony Simons, you have guys like Jordan Poole, like Tyler Hero's there's a lot of Tyler Heroes in the league,
Yeah.
and right now with the Portland Trail Blazers, we just talked about Scoot Henderson. You drafted Shaedon Sharpe last year. You still have Anthony Simons. I think you have too many perimeter players to warrant trading for a Tyler Hero, and I can understand why they don't want him, which is why a third team is going to have to be involved to
Yep.
take on Tyler Hero and either send assets to Portland if this trade happens. If not, the alternative would be like another team like, let's say, Philly, and you can include a James Harden, and that's where we're going to pivot to next, is talking about James Harden.
It's a whole different problem there.
Bakley, you're a Philly fan, and this probably took you by surprise because you were either assuming that Harden was going to re-sign with the Sixers or he was going to go ahead and sign with the Houston Rockets, because he misses the strip clubs over there. And, the money is good. Like the contract money would have been good, but apparently the money wasn't there. They threw that money elsewhere, and James Harden decided to pick up his player option and then request a trade with his preferred landing destination being the LA Clippers. However, the little hiccup there is that the LA Clippers don't seem very keen even on giving up any good players in return for James Harden. Some people were like, for whatever reason, foolishly thinking like, oh, you include
Paul George.
Paul George for James Harden. Why the fuck would the Clippers do that?
It's just a Philly dream. I mean, right?
Yeah.
It's just a dream. But then you look at all the other pieces to it. When we look back at the OKC Thunder, you had Durant, you had Westbrook, you had Harden, and there's all this talks about the friction with all of them. But now you have him wanting to go to the Clippers, and it's like, okay, we had Westbrook. He worked with Durant. We've had Harden. He worked with Durant at different times. And now you're going to go pair Westbrook and Harden together again when that was the main reason Harden left the OKC Thunder in the first place. Because
he wasn't gonna, third time's a charm.
Because he wasn't going to start over Westbrook, and he wanted to be the guy instead of behind the guy and having to be thrusted into that six-man role. He wanted to progress his game. And what's going to happen is one of those two is going to be thrust, and it probably will be Westbrook, which would be the smart choice. But there's a big thing holding up the whole trading Harden, him going anywhere. There's a reason why his option was picked up. It's because of the contract. It's because of the age. It's because of how much he wants. It's hard to bring a guy in at that time who he can shoot well, but he's shown that he can't get to a certain point in the playoffs. He kind of disappears.
Yeah.
And he doesn't produce for the value of the contract. And it's like with the Sixers were already in the hole with contracts and how much they've invested in the Supermaxes. Even if they got rid of him, they really can't bring a Supermax in if they were able to get rid of him early. So it was kind of like you either got to get rid of him and hope that you can just do away with this contract by throwing in a first rounder, then tell somebody to take him on so you can worry about the next year and the year after, or you bring him back and just run it again for another year, even though there's that little friction between Harden and the front office. And then on top of that, you have everything going on with Joel Embiid with what he said after they lost to the Celtics, saying me and Harden can't carry the team in the playoffs anymore, even though that they.
And then the very next game, him and Harden didn't do shit.
Yeah,
and the rest of the team could.
PJ Tucker, who led the team in points that day, and then
if PJ Tucker's leading you in points, you're
fucking up. And then number two was what's his name, who's on the trade block right now, every other day. No, for the Sixers.
Oh, for the Sixers.
the super max. He's on the max
Tobias,
contract.
right?
Yeah,
Tobias
Tobias
Harris,
Harris.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
He
what he
was-
said. Yeah.
Yeah, he was second on the team in points that game too, and he
No,
had
that
pretty
game,
decent-
the whole bench did amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone, Maxey, Melton, I think everybody played great in that first half of Game 7, other than Embiid and Harden.
and now you got all the talks where they're ready to ship Harden, but Tyrese Maxey had to be involved in it. And from a fan standpoint, I would say, why would you trade the one young piece that you have along all these other pieces that you've stuck with? That's the one guy who you got lucky that he dropped a pick 21. He dropped to you. He showcased they could do stuff, and you want to let him progress. You want to bring him up. You want to have him be the guy sooner. And you're throwing him in there. There's all these different talks of teams that throw in versus going to be with the Heat. And I'm like,
that makes no sense. I don't think that's
Yeah.
going to fit.
That it was Portland. I was like, okay, for Dame Lillard, I could see that, but how are we going to pull it off because of the contracts? Because in NBA, you always have to match coming
because
in.
Portland's
to
not
coming
taking
out.
Harden. You'd have to give up. So you'd be considering Harris and Maxey plus whatever other young, compensation you could add.
And then you got to think of, you have Joel Embiid, who plays the center position. He's injury prone. He's in his prime right now. How many years left that you have in him? There's so many different things that you got to think of with this team because of the way it was constructed, the bad coaching that was going on here. And it's like they put themselves in the situation where it's like there's going to be bad that comes out no matter what you do with this. It's either, you gotta trade Harden now and bring young people in, but then you're wasting the clock, the hourglass with Embiid, or you bring him back, you run the same team, but then it looks like how you're going to bring any bench players in, because that was a killer thing with the team as well. We weren't scoring off the bench because we were primarily focused on the starting five because you have a lot of money invested into it. That's what happens when you have 3 max contracts, and then you have to make sure that they all produce to the liking of the contract, because then you're bringing in minimum salary guys to fill off the roster. Like it worked with the Heat after year 2, but they had 3 superstars on the team at the time. I see Embiid as a superstar. At this time, I don't see Harden as one. And then Tobias Harris is lucky to be a star, but he's produced as the third guy because that's what he's being paid to be, as the third guy, even though he's getting paid to be a number 1. That's how much he's making. So it's like you're already stuck in that scenario. It's like, what can you do? No matter what, something's like I said before, something's bad gonna happen. I feel like the Sixers should blow it up, and I mean everything, blow it up. If you're gonna trade Harden, you might as well trade Harris. You trade those two, you might as well kick the can and see what you can get for Embiid, because you're already
that's a lot. That's a lot to ask of a franchise that went through several years of the most notorious tanking program. Came out of it with multiple potential superstars, technically even guys like Mikal Bridges, and they had a shot at drafting Jason Tatum, and there was this long process, and I think it's just a lot to subject. You came out with one MVP player, and it's like, I think in Philly you almost have to just ride this out to its conclusion, because you just can't give up on it, because it took so much just to get to that point.
That's why with me, I'm like, if I had to pick the 2, you might as well just keep them for a year and see what happens. Like, you can make the playoffs, and now you got a new coach. It's like,
maybe something else works out. Maybe there's a trade deadline deal that shakes out. Maybe there's a deal for Tobias and an expiring.
It makes me feel like right now, it's like with Brett Brown, I don't feel like he was the problem anymore. Because
I never thought he was the problem.
No, I never thought he was.
I didn't. Was not the problem.
The problem here.
I think that was a desperate gamble to try to hope that a Doc Rivers type of coach could coalesce Simmons and Embiid into a functioning duo on the court.
And when I look back now, like when we drafted Simmons, I was against drafting him at that time. I wanted to draft Ingram because I saw the writing on the wall with Simmons being at LSU. They were a losing team, even though he was a 3-stat guy that he could pass, he could rebound. And then he made it look like he could shoot, even though now we know that he can't.
Well,
But
the funny thing is, he could shoot in his first year. He could shoot
Yeah,
in the
he
mid
was.
range. He just couldn't shoot from three,
and
and
he
then he
shoots
got worse every
and
year.
and he shoots with his opposite hand. People don't realize
Yeah, right.
he's shooting with his non-dominant hand because that's the hand that his father shot with.
But
And
he got worse. That was the
Yeah.
problem. I
Yeah.
like Simmons to be
Yeah.
fair. Like
I
I'm-
liked him.
yeah,
I think
like
they kind of.
him a lot.
I think.
It's a
I
confidence
think.
issue.
I think everything surrounded it was just bad because he brought him into Philly. Brett Brown was his father's, I think, coach or
Yeah, because he was the
teammate
coach
in
of the
Australia,
Australian,
yeah.
Australian.
So it was kind of like
national
a
team.
cauldron effect, and then he got like too big, and then he was like, "I don't have to do this now." He's not going to enforce it, and then it got to the point where now you have him where he's barely playing, and he might sit on the bench now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ben Simmons is a different curious case, but to go back to the whole James Harden Philly situation,
Yeah.
if you're looking
I
at the
don't see a good
Clippers,
solution.
No.
yeah,
to it.
no, there's not a perfect solution there because like the preferred landing spot right now is the Clippers, and it's very similar to the Damian Lillard situation. The Clippers know
The
that.
package
So,
is going to end up being like Norman Powell and
no, it's not
like,
even Norman Powell. Currently, from everything I've read up, is that they've only really offered it's like Kenyon Martin Jr., Robert Covington, and like one other, like maybe like a Nick Batum. That they haven't even been willing to give up Terrence Mann in the deal.
and that's a completely unserious offer.
Yeah, that's a completely unserious offer. So
And-
if
and
you're
then
the
you're giving
Clippers,
and you're bringing us back a guy that was already on the team like 5 years ago in Covington.
Mhm.
look, if this deal were to get, well, I think you have to include Covington to make the contract.
Yeah, he
and the
just to
money
make
work.
the contracts work.
He's
And I
just
think
there.
it's something for Philly fans to be happy about the past.
Yeah. So if I'm looking at if I'm trying to build a more realistic trade for like Harden to the Clippers, it would have to include Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, and Kenyon Martin Jr. At least it has to be those three guys for James Harden. I think that's
Yeah.
fair value. I think that's okay. You're not giving up too much. And to go back to what Bakley was saying, like James Harden, like Russell Westbrook was not the issue and not the reason why James Harden dipped on OKC. It was the simple fact that he just wanted to start, and at that time they could have still started him because he was playing two guard, he was playing off ball. They were starting Thabos instead.
Well,
And
this to me, Harden, this is the original sin of the modern NBA to me. The original sin that everything else since then has kind of trickled down from is OKC trading James Harden and not giving him that extension.
Yeah,
Because everything from there was a trickle down effect to the Durant and Westbrook eventual breakup and like Harden and then the creation of the Rockets and all of that, man. And then them trying to re-team back up multiple times, Harden and Westbrook in Houston, Harden and Durant in Brooklyn. Like the original sin, man. It all boils down to that OKC.
And I think even with that, they were the ones who drafted Sabonis, and then they got rid of him to bring in Paul George, the team with Russell Westbrook, and it only lasted a year or two.
Exactly.
So there's been a lot there, but I don't know. I don't see a good like solution for the James Harden. A lot of destinations
basically
have been pointed out.
Philly's like what it seems like what they're pushing, and Morey's apparent attention to just head into the season, keep him, and just kind of convince him to just play it out. Is probably the best way, the best option right now.
And then just wait until the deadline to get rid of him because you're probably going to get more for him then.
It's damage control. He's trying to just control what he can. Play that out, see how you do in the season, see if you can get on a hot streak. And
maybe a Harris trade comes up. That makes sense. That could
if you do bad, then trade what you can, and if you're doing good, bring.
Worst case scenario, both Tobias and James Harden's contracts would expire at the end of the year.
And then you kind of like retool the roster at that point. The biggest issue for like the biggest hurdle, I guess, for the not the Houston Rockets, the Philadelphia 76ers has been the fact that they have been like preoccupied with just this James Harden trade request and haven't really addressed anything in free agency. They lost George Niang. Like he wasn't like a big player, but they lost him.
And they let the guy who they traded, a second round pick and Matisse Thybulle for, they let him walk.
He was with.
It's because they can't afford anything. They can't afford any pieces.
Yeah, they can't. They don't have the money for it. And look, I think the worst case scenario, like obviously, I think best thing you can do right now is just kind of like go along with it. Just kind of have that conversation with James. I mean, we'll get you a trade destination. We'll keep working on it, but just at least do your due diligence and show up to practice, show up and play, and let's try to like be competitive while we can. Let's try to make the best out of pretty bad situation. Maybe they re-sign him actually at the end of the year, and they don't give him what he actually wants numbers wise, but get something close to it, something that he can be comfortable and happy and satisfied with. My biggest issue here and concern, if I'm a Philly fan, if I'm the front office, if I'm Daryl Morey, is forget the injury concerns about Joel Embiid. He might just up and request a trade too. He's the next big star. Him and Luka are the two big stars that I'm waiting and counting the clock for when they request a trade, because those are the two big guys within the next year or two that might request a trade and could actually make a giant like pendulum swing.
And that does seem where it's heading. Then that would be the saddest way for the process to end, I think.
Yeah,
like, you know,
he is the process. That's
what I'm saying. Yeah, the ending. The
ultimate ending. I think a small thing that I was kind of overlooking is the fact that I think the reason maybe something, if it could be worked out, hasn't, is Sixers are trying to see how much they could get the other team to pay of Harden's contract as they can. Because right now it's like, from what I see, it's 50-50. They want. The Sixers are being asked to take in 50%, but I think the Sixers are trying to be a little bit greedy, see if they can up it to see how much more they can save.
Well, I mean, no, the way they'd have to, they'll only be on the hook for as much of the contract as long as he's on the team. So it's more of the salary matching thing. That's
yeah. Because it's in like a $30+ million deal.
Yeah.
So there you go. He took a pay, like honestly, I think that.
Yeah, props to Harden on at least, he did.
He took the pay cut last
money. year. Yeah, to try to add pieces to,
Yeah, so he that's the big issue there, and similar to the Damian Lillard stuff is that they feel like they've been loyal, they did a loyal thing, so they wanted to like have that payback in them. With James Harden, he took a pay cut with the player option to get PJ Tucker and add other role players around to make the team better. Obviously, they fell short in the playoffs. I honestly was really kind of rooting to see Joel Embiid versus Jokic in the finals.
Yeah, man.
That would have been a great finals.
I think they trusted too much on those Houston pieces.
Yeah, exactly. And then you like to slightly touch back on the Lillard stuff. Brian Windhorst made this comment where it's like they were kind of like doing what that new trend where they're like quiet quitting, because they're like, yeah, we're gonna trade we're gonna be competitive. Then they trade Josh Hart for a first round pick. Then they go ahead and like say, yeah, we're gonna tank a little bit and we're gonna trade the top pick this year. Then they moved up in the number 3 pick. I'm like, okay, well, we're not trading the top 3 pick because we might get a top prospect in Scoot Henderson's, a guy that could have been the number 1 draft pick in any other draft that didn't include Victor Wembanyama. So now Damian Lillard kind of feels slighted. I'm like, I was loyal. You said you're gonna build, but you're not really rebuilding. They're making moves that seems like they're actually building the contender, and that's the biggest issue with the Portland Damian Lillard scenario, is that it's not Dallas. Mark, you even say what you will about the guy, he was always willing to spend for Dirk Nowitzki and take care of him and make sure they added other pieces. They try to do some things, and even currently right now with Luka, like they re-signed Kyrie Irving, and we'll talk more about that. But we haven't talked about free agency that much, so we're going to pivot on over to the team that everyone thought that James Harden could have been a contender to sign with, and that was the Houston Rockets. Instead, they decided to give that money to Fred VanVleet in a very interesting deal, to be honest with you, because I was not expecting it. If I'm not mistaken, the contract was for 3 years, $130 million, which is a lot to give for Fred VanVleet, but they had the money to give up. It was it's with the new CBA, they have to go ahead and spend 90% of their cap space every year, so they had to spend the money. They not only did they pick up Fred VanVleet 3 years, $30 million, they signed Dylan Brooks, a guy that everyone was dogging after the Grizzlies got eliminated by the Lakers, saying that he's going to have to learn Chinese or something because he's going to have to play somewhere else because no one's going to sign him. He landed a 4-year, $80 million deal with the Houston Rockets. They signed Jock Landale from the Phoenix Suns, 4 years, $32 million. They brought back Jeff Green. Jeff Green continues to bounce from team to team. He finally got his championship. He's good to go. He's back with the Rockets, 2 years, $60 million. And they also picked up Aaron Holiday on a 1-year minimum deal. So overall, based on what they did with Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, Jock Landale is a solid backup guy. They still got a veteran in Jeff Green, and they did get rid of a lot of their guys, of their younger guys, to just kind of like get more of a veteran presence in there. They just kind of felt like a bunch of like kids just playing like pickup basketball. There was no structure there. They now have why am I drawing a blank on the coach? Help me out here, Bosh. Houston Rockets coach.
Ime Udoka, the former Philly assistant.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, there you
Ime
go.
Udoka.
So they brought in Ime Udoka, and then they actually asked him, like, how do you feel about coaching James Harden? And he honestly said, I don't think it will work here. And they didn't go after James Harden, so Harden to the Rockets wasn't an option anymore. They pivoted to Fred VanVleet. Shout out to Freddie VanVleet, being from Illinois. I'm glad he got the bag. He fucking
Rockford
deserves
zone.
it. Yeah,
Wichita
Rockford
State.
Say
The
what?
Shockers. I said Wichita State.
Yeah.
He put them on the map.
Exactly. So I'm glad he went ahead and got that deal. Dylan Brooks, like he got a little annoying towards the end there, obviously, like talking a lot of crap. to put it lightly, yes. So you got a little bit annoying, but I still value what he can contribute to a team. He can still play hard-nosed defense. He's going to be the kind of guy that they need.
And to me, I think Udoka probably pushed that signing. I think is the type of guy he wants in the locker room to back his 100%. Message. Like he can.
Because
I think
he had
can definitely,
Marcus Smart with Boston.
Yep, exactly.
So he's going to be that Marcus Smart.
He wants that type of guy to back his message among the players.
And they had a lot of young talent last year. And it was more so like the inmates running the asylum.
Yeah.
But now you bring in a coach like Udoka who did very well in Boston. And now he comes here and you bring established talent. That's what you do when you have all these draft picks, all these young talent. You then want to use that, see who you want to keep, see who's shining, and then bring free agents in to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just getting one shiny piece in James Harden, you can get two or three pieces.
That never made much sense.
Yeah.
This is much better.
You can bring 2 or 3 pieces to fill the roster out for less the money and what it costs for one. You get Fred VanVleet, who showcased himself the last 2 years that he could score, that he could be an all-star, he can work with other guys in Toronto, like up there.
And that's the thing, as opposed to Harden, he's going to make his teammates better. The young players, he can make them better. He can play off the ball. He's got good defensive leadership. He's a better example for them on that side, on both ends of the court.
And then you got Brooks, who he probably doesn't even have to start. He probably will, but he could be a guy that could be like the 6th man off the bench if they wanted to work it that way, because he can shoot, he can play defense. He's showcased on a team that is primarily defensive based in the Grizzlies, that he can play both ends of the court. And we haven't even talked about the fact that they had the young kid, was it Thompson? That they drafted?
Amen Thompson. And they had Cam Whitmore, who I was hoping the Bulls would somehow find a way in the first round.
On top
of that,
all
the way to 20.
And then you still have the talent that you have left over from the last 2 years. Like everybody, and it's promising now because you got three established guys. You got the young talent besides them. To me, right now, they look like they could be like a 5 to 8 seed right now.
They're definitely
I think they're playing team.
Yeah, they're definitely all of a sudden a team that can compete for the play-in.
Yeah.
Like with Şengün and with the young gunners they have, and now the established pieces plus
like it could be like a better version of OKC, where OKC kind of overshot themselves last year and were one game away from making it into the playoffs.
That's a good comparison there, because I think the Thunder and the Rockets are very similar in terms of talent and what they can do.
And they didn't even have Chet Holmgren at all last year.
Everyone forgot about Chet Holmgren.
Chet is back.
They did it without him. It was just SGA. They had Dort, who showcased himself. They had that big man that did well. And then they had
Jason Williams. They had Jason Williams.
Jason Williams. And then what's his name? The white kid.
The white.
Oh, you're talking about the Australian. Josh Giddey.
Shout out to Josh Giddey. He gave me his jersey in 2K.
Yeah. He was a great passer, and then he could shoot at times. So it's like, it's the same situation. It's just that they're
lengthy too. They have a lot of length on that team.
It's just that the Rockets shot up their game plan. They wanted to bring in guys now. Instead of where the Thunder, they're so in depth on seeing what they have right now, get all that talent. They have all those picks. The Rockets shot up like a year or two. We're like, okay, we're ready now. We bring this coach in. We know he wants to win and not wait. So they did that, and it looks on paper, it looks like it's going to work.
Yeah,
it's just how well they gel all together. But it's like you got a great mixture of young talent and veterans that should be on paper good.
A lot of people are harping on the numbers here. Obviously, like I stated, 130 millions for 3 year to Fred VanVleet.
Yeah,
4
because Toronto
years.
certainly wasn't expecting him to get maxed
No,
like that.
no.
Yeah.
Jock Landale is another one where they're like, oh, 4 years, 38 million. Like, come on, like what you doing there? But look, I will say this: they had the cap space. The Rockets now have become one of the more interesting teams in the Western Conference, or even in the entire NBA. Because let's run down their depth chart, right? They signed Fred VanVleet; that's their starting point guard. So you no longer have to worry about Kevin Porter Jr. being the main point guard because he's not a lead guard. He's a scorer similar to JLan.
You can move him to a better position that suits him even better because he was kind of forced to play point guard last year.
Yeah, because they never had a fucking point guard on that team. That's the thing. And so not only did you pick up Fred VanVleet, the backup there, now you have Aaron Holiday. So now you have two solid legit point guards. You have JLan Green, who's still your young stud, coming off starting off right next to Fred VanVleet. And Freddie can get the ball to him and help him get easier buckets, but also he will be an off-ball threat for him for JLan Green to kick out to because he's a really good spot up shooter. Yes, he had a down year in percentage-wise from 3 last year, but look,
defenses will still guard him out there.
Yeah, defense will still guard him.
Yeah.
So so you have Fred VanVleet, now you have JLan Green. Then you have Dylan Brooks, a guy that's going to bring in energy. I think you should start him, honestly. You're paying him the money, but there's not really anyone in the wing at that small forward position that kind of really warrants to start over him, at least right now. Then eventually someone can overtake him and get that starting nod. But right now, I think you give it to him. I think you still go with Jabari Smith Jr. as a starting four with them because you need. And now that's the biggest issue with Jabari Smith. The reason why he wasn't producing what everyone was hoping he could last year as the potential number 3 guy in the draft was because he's more of a setup guy. He needs someone to help him get the ball. He's not an offensive creator. He's not going to do that. He's not going to be a low post threat and stuff like that. He's going to play well within the system, and I think Ime Udoka is going to really bring the best out of him. So look for Jabari Smith to have a better sophomore campaign compared to his rookie season. Then you still have Şengün starting at center, who I fucking love. He's one of my favorite. He's basically like
great to watch.
mini Jokic, like similar in the vein of Jokic and Sabonis. He's another European big man that can like play offensively and like distribute the ball. Fun to see. So you back up both Fred VanVleet and Şengün with Jock Landale and Aaron Holiday. You got to back up veteran forward and Jeff Green still. And what else? What else did they have? Obviously, like I mentioned, Kevin Porter Jr.
Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore.
Yeah, Cam Whitmore. Amen Thompson drafted 2 young prospects that I genuinely love and do like. Then you still have Kevin Porter Jr. Now he's more of a 6-man role kind of guy coming off the bench. This team is very solid. I like everything this team has. And like I said, they're a contender for a play-in team. I wouldn't be surprised to see them be a 9th seed, 8th seed, or even a 10th seed. Like worst case scenario, they're 11.
Now, what do you think their starting lineup will be? What do you think it's going to be?
Oh yeah, like I said,
VanVleet,
Green,
Brooks, and then Jabari and Şengün, right?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
I think how long? I mean, I think it's. I'm really interested to see if Amen Thompson shows enough to make a push to be in the starting lineup this year as a rookie.
He showcased in the summer league. There's a couple games before. Ironically, both him and Henderson got hurt in the same season.
Isn't he like too small to play at the 3? Like I don't think he's going to start over JLan Green or Fred VanVleet, so I don't think he's starting.
I don't know if he's small. He's just been a guard the entire time. He's not. I don't think he's too small. He's a big guard.
Let me look at.
He's a big guard. He can play him at 3.
They see him as a point guard.
Okay, he's 6'7". He's 6'7".
He's a 6'7" guard. He's which is why
I can see a scenario where he is the point guard and Fred VanVleet is the shooting guard.
Oh yeah, he can play very well.
The issue would be as long as they can play together offensively. As long as can he guard a 3, and if he can guard a 3, then they're all set.
Yeah. Let's touch up on a few teams that were impacted by some of the moves with the Houston Rockets. The main one being the Toronto Raptors. They lost Fred VanVleet, and they compensated by picking up Dennis Schroeder. So Dennis the
I don't know if that's compensating. That's
compensating. Not the best way to compensate.
It's trying to.
They brought back Jakob Poeltl to still compete. The Toronto Raptors right now are that team that I'm looking at. I'm like, I really want you guys to succeed, but it looks like the best case scenario for them is to blow it up. I think they should trade Siakam, get something for Pearl, even though they just signed him. Try to build around Scotty Barnes. I think that's your guy right now. Maybe
The
get
problem
something
is
for Gary Trent.
Pascal has a similar thing as to Dame, and where he's saying like, not that he wants to be traded, but that he will not sign an extension wherever he's traded because this is the last year of his deal. So
Yeah. I think you
going to
can
be
get a
difficult.
solid spot. The only team so far that I've seen have been linked with him has been the Atlanta Hawks, and honestly, given the fact that they traded John Collins over to the Utah Jazz, they really do have a hole at that power forwards position. What are they going to do? Start Sadiq Bey? I don't think that helps with winning basketball whatsoever. So I think the Raptors are big losers in free agency for sure. I think they do need to get something out of Siakam and look for him to be a big player. Dylan Brooks, obviously, no longer with the Memphis Grizzlies. They traded him away. Oh, not traded away, but they traded for Marcus Smart to essentially be the replacement for Dylan Brooks, especially right now to start things off when Ja has his 25-game suspension. He could start for the Memphis Grizzlies, help them out,
Yeah,
run
as
the
we talked
offense.
about in the last pod, that's a great
Yeah,
an
and then when
upgrade
Ja
replacement.
comes back, he can play
And-
alongside Ja defensively in the perimeter, or he can come off the bench. But the big thing I want to talk about is probably one of the hottest free agents in the 2023 class, and that is Derrick Rose going back to Memphis. Not only is he going back to Memphis, he's bringing back number 23 that he wore in Memphis. God,
That's what I was gonna say. I hope he wears his jersey.
no. So he posted on his IG that he's
Okay, I didn't see that.
with his Memphis Grizzlies jersey with wearing number 23. I'm gonna pick that up.
That's cool.
I'm waiting for them to drop a classic Grizzlies jersey throwback edition so I can cop it just like I did with the Timberwolves one. I'm on right now a mission to buy every single jersey that Derrick Rose has for every team. So right now I currently am watching a Cleveland Cavaliers Derrick Rose jersey on eBay. I'm trying to pick up a New York Knicks one, so I need a number 4 and a number 25.
I can't have a Knicks jersey hanging anywhere, and oh man,
I know, but it's Derrick, man. I kind of want to have that collection. So I need it.
My favorite point guard of all time played for the Knicks briefly, but I can't have a Penny Hardaway Knicks jersey hanging either. I'm sorry.
That's true. So yeah.
Although now my two of my top 3 favorite point guards of all time are in the same city. Penny and Derrick are both back in Memphis. So
yeah. There you go. So I like what Memphis did here. They have a solid team right now. So
it makes you think with that trade when they did the trade the first time. Smart wasn't involved in the trade. It got accepted, and then they backed out of it. And then was it 6 hours later? Then Marcus Smart is the main piece in that trade. So it made you wonder, okay, maybe they were thinking, one, they knew that Morant was going to be out a while, and two, it's them foreshadowing.
Maybe they knew he was going to be suspended. They knew.
Yeah, maybe when he comes back, maybe we want to fill a piece, knowing that maybe they knew that Dylan Brooks was gone.
Oh, it really was a blessing for Memphis that the Clippers decided that Brogdon's injury history was too much for them to take on in that deal, because they wouldn't have gotten Smart otherwise, and that really helped them out.
So that was great for them. That worked out tremendously for them. Let's look at the depth chart right there. You still have John Morant. You still have Desmond Bane, George Jackson Jr. They didn't have Steven
Bane got an extension, by the way. So that's nice.
Yeah. So there's that. They still have Xavier Tillman. Luke Kennard is a solid guy. They got Brandon Clark as well. Zaire Williams is still a guy off their bench they could or could not include. Like I said, they have Derrick Rose, whether he plays a significant minutes, who is going to be telling, but I think he's going to be a good guy to have in the locker room, and I think that's what they need is a guy in the locker room. I saw so many memes. It was Guns N' Roses, with Ja and Derrick Rose, but
Guns N' Rose.
Honestly, you look at Ja and he does give you flashbacks of prime, or I can't even say prime Derrick Rose because he never got to his prime, but young Derrick Rose, MVP Derrick Rose with the athleticism, attacking the baskets. So we'll see what happens with the Memphis Grizzlies. Let's move on though to the next team, and the team that had a very splashy offseason initially we talked about them already. They got rid of their point guard in Chris Paul, including him in the trade to land Bradley Beal. Everyone was a little bit confused because you're like Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, similar type players. Can you play them in the wing together? Does one of them have to be the de facto point guard? Most likely.
What about
Booker.
their bench? They were so
What
thin.
about their bench? And my God, did they address the bench concern? And
like bravo, man! What a way to address it.
Oh yeah, fantastic. So let's talk about that. A few guys they picked up. They got Eric Gordon for 2 years, $6.5 million, which is about the vet minimum, and the second year is a player option. They also got Yuta Watanabe, a guy that I love from the Brooklyn Nets that played with Kevin Durant. That's just a really sniper from the corners. And
good shooter, young player with room to develop.
Yes.
A lot of height, so he can shoot over, closeouts. That's the key to me. And
they got him for they got him for a 2-year, $5 million contract, with the second year being a player option. They also brought back Josh Okogie, a guy that can play on the defensive end, but also score for them. He torched the Bulls that one time. Like I was waiting for Kevin Durant to be the dude to torch the Bulls right after the Kevin Durant trade to Phoenix, but it was Josh Okogie that was killing us.
And he's a good depth piece for a 3-and-D wing. So,
yeah. They got him for $2.5 million, the minimum type deal. So that was a very good pickup for them as well. They brought back some guys like Damian Lee. They lost Jock Landale, but they picked up Drew.
And they lost Torrey Craig.
They lost Torrey Craig. We'll talk about Torrey Craig. Drew Eubanks signed to be their backup center. Keita Bates-Diop, who I like.
Diop is actually, that's a good pickup. It's gonna be interesting to see because now he's gonna have real expectations on him. I think he'll end an opportunity to really perform if he fits his role.
Again, for a 2-year, $5 million deal, second year being player option. So they didn't limit themselves too much. They signed
I'm forgetting his last name.
Metu. Like
Chimezie Metu. Thank you.
Chimezie Metu. Yeah. Thank you. God damn, these names are
from the Kings.
Yeah, from the Kings. They signed up for a 1-year, $2.5 million veteran minimum deal. So they got a good amount of guys on the team.
A lot more depth than they had last year. And the addition they just made today, which I had not heard about till we started recording.
Yeah, I didn't see it. Like Bakley sent it to me yesterday, but they are working on currently a sign and trade deal for Christian Wood to solidify their front court and for 2 future second-round picks. Is a solid.
Now, my first thought is how is that going to work with him and DeAndre Ayton? That they play the same position because Wood likes to play the 5.
Wood can play 4.
You can't exactly. You can play him at 4, and he has played the 4 in Dallas and before.
So now you look at the depth chart. We still don't. There's so much possibility as to who the fit start is going to be, but we know Bradley Beal is going to start. We know Devin Booker starting. We know Kevin Durant starting. We know DeAndre Ayton starting. Now you look at the rest of the roster, and you have guys like maybe Eric Gordon. I don't know if he'll start, but he's a contender to be part of that final 5 to close out games. You have guys like Campaign, who's probably their only legit point guard on the team. You have guys like Josh Okogie, who was starting for them, who can't give them 3-and-D on the team. You have now a Christian Wood who could be a believable power forward. If you want to go big, you can go with Booker at the point. He was playing point guard prior to the addition of Chris Paul a few years back, so he's probably the best playmaker out of the 3 star players in Beal and Durant. It's obviously the best all-time plug and play. Can you put him in any kind of system type of all-star? He can fit anywhere. And then Bradley Beal is going to be another creator as well. So they have the depth. They still have. You
still have Terrence Ross off the bench for scoring punch.
They signed Derek Beasley as well. So that's another front court guy as well coming to the team. So they have options, man. They have a lot of options here. I liked what they did, and I don't think they're the favorites, but they definitely did do a lot.
So it would be Booker, Beal, Durant, Wood, and then Ayton if you wanted to do it that way.
You could go a big lineup. I think you start Okogie because he was starting with them when Chris Paul was on the team. So you just kind of at that point, you really only have to incorporate and try to mesh in Bradley Beal with that starting unit because that was one of the starting lineups as well. So I think that's what
because Wood can also come in as a backup 5.
Yeah, he can come in as a backup 5, backup 4, whatever. It'll be fine. And like I said, they still got Jock Landale to come off. Not Jock Landale,
They don't have
Drew
him anymore,
Banks.
but yeah,
Drew
Eubanks,
Banks.
yeah.
Sorry, two white guy centers. I got them
Yeah.
confused. But they got guys.
I just know with the price tag and how much you play certain guys, you want to make sure that they live up to the contract or live up to what you traded for them. So knowing like a guy like Wood, even though they're giving up only 2 future seconds, they're probably having high value for him to come in there to fit a certain role and possibly start, knowing that if Ayton's the 5, you really don't have a 4 there unless you move Durant up to the 4.
I think Durant's their starting 4. I think he's been playing for the last couple of years.
And then what would Akagi be, the 3?
Yeah,
yeah,
Josh
okay,
the 3.
You can do that, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the lineup you go with. New signed French NBA coach Frank Vogel.
That's the thing. They got pieces that Frank Vogel that fit their coach, because Vogel likes to construct this deep, like defensively versatile lineup around his superstars, as he did in LA.
Yeah,
even in Indiana, he did it a certain way too. Yeah,
right. Indiana, he had a whole defense that was the guiding principle of the team. But in LA, like when they won their championship, the defense was what came around.
Yeah.
That's what he got to work around LeBron and AD for them to win that championship.
I like Monty Williams, but there was too much clash between him and Aiden, and it kind of felt like it was either Aiden or Monty, or both are gone. And I'm very impressed that the Phoenix Suns were able to do what they did without giving DeAndre Ayton, because a lot of people were saying, us included, were like, well, they're going to have to get rid of DeAndre Ayton because they're not going to get rid of Monty Williams.
There was those talks of him going to the Pacers, and it was this supposed to be done. And then I guess the last second that they bailed and
they pivoted. Yes, they ended up pivoting, and they went ahead and ended up keeping him. And I think that's good. I don't know how long DeAndre Ayton is actually going to be happy being there in Phoenix, being the number 4th guy now. But you know what? It is what it is, Bakley. I like the lineup. And like I said, they didn't give up Aiden, still added depth around them. I still think they need to make a trade for a legit point guard, or pick up a point guard and like the buyout market, like after the trade deadline. So there's still something they have to do here to get. And it's not going to be hard. They better not be hard. They
got plenty of pieces there, and they're going to be able to carry over to a certain point where they should be in the top 3, top 4. Injuries change things, but with the pieces that they have, they got 3 different guys that one guy's out that could carry the load with scoring. You got Beal, you got Booker, you got Durant, all guys that were in the top 5 in scoring the last couple of years, because that's what they do. It's just like you said, they just need that guy that can facilitate to everybody.
I think that's going to be crucial. I think even if it's not, they don't even need like an all-star type guy. Like in the perfect world, like someone like a Mike Conley, if like he had like a reasonable contract, I could see that. There's some guys, right? Obviously, right now you're not going to find that guy in free agency. Like all the best players are kind of like picked up, with the exception, like Christian Wood was a guy that was like, oh, he's probably the best remaining free agent. They just picked him up. Guy like Kelly Oubre Jr., I think he does a little bit too much of what they already have, so I wouldn't bring him in. They were linked to Derrick Rose. Obviously, he signed with Memphis, so he's no longer an option. I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow pull off like getting like a lead guard type of guy that can play with them, a Derek Fisher type of dude. That's what they need. So we'll see. Or you never know. Maybe Eric Gordon could be that guy for them. I don't fucking know. Campaign's still there.
Beal and Booker both have played point guard in the past. Durant obviously is a playmaker, like you said, and then they have Campaign off the bench. I think they're fine with.
We'll see.
One of them is going to wind up having to sacrifice shooting a little bit to be the facilitator. It's just there's always that.
It's gotta have to be Booker. It's gonna have to be Booker. It's gonna have to be Booker being the main distributor, playmaker.
He can facilitate. It's just that he's a really good shooter, and he did decently a couple of years ago when he was the primary ball handler and guy facilitating other guys. I agree with you. Instead of averaging 30 points, he might just be a guy that maybe is just 20 points, but then he'll up his facilitation to make sure that Durant and Beal and Ayton get their chances at shooting or getting the ball in the bucket. It's just a battle. What you got to do.
Ironically,
contracts.
Ironically, the best point guard fit for them would have been Chris Paul, who they just got rid of for this team. Crazy. So we'll see what happens with the Phoenix Suns. Obviously, they're a top 3, top 4 team in the Western Conference. Given the moves they made, barring injury, they still need to make a trade and an acquisition for a lead guard that can help distribute. Because as great as Devin Booker and Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant are, all of those guys play best when they're playing off the ball and they're catch and shoot type of guys, or like being threats. Like they need some help with someone setting them up. Hell, he's still out there in free agency. I still believe that he can help and contribute a little bit, slightly. John Wall, maybe. Like, he could be a guy they can pick up. I don't think he's going to help them tremendously, but...
No, I think he signed with the Wizards.
Wall?
Yeah, I think he signed with the Wizards. Let me double check.
All right. While you do that, we'll move on to the next team on our list here, which is the LA...
Oh, no, he did not. Yeah, they said that he got worked out and he was going to, but then he backed out.
Okay. I get that. All right. The next team we're going to talk about, another team that was surprisingly had a very solid offseason. Not only did they bring back their guys, they picked up a few guys like in free agency to add so much more depth to their roster, and that's the LA Lakers. So let's run down who they picked up. They got Austin Reeves for 4 years, $33.8 million, which is way under what I thought they were going to pay him. They brought back Rui Hachimura for 3 years, $51 million, which again is a little bit more than I would have liked, but still a reasonable contract. They brought back D'Angelo Russell, a guy who I thought was long gone after his performance in the playoffs, but they brought him back for 2 years, $36 million, which isn't a terrible deal.
And got him to agree to not be limited by his bird rights, giving him veto power over trade, so he can be traded without veto power.
Yes.
So that's part of the new collective bargaining agreement. Usually would be that if a player would lose their bird rights by being traded, which D'Angelo would, since he's only on a 2-year contract, but has bird rights with the Lakers since he was with them before, he would normally lost his bird rights in the trade and therefore could veto a trade. Bird rights being what allow a team to exceed the cap to sign their own players, the Larry Bird rule, as it were.
Yes.
And so the part of the new collective bargaining agreement is that the player can agree at the time of signing the contract to waive that protection ahead of time, which D'Angelo did.
Exactly. So
nice bit of maneuver.
Yeah, so. No, fantastic. You know, I gave him a lot of flack, but like Rob Pelinka really did a great job, not only in the trade deadline.
They pivoted so well here.
They went back to what made them successful when they won the championship in the bubble. So they, like I said, they brought back their guys in Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, and D'Angelo Russell. They lost. And Jaron Vanderbilt. They still have him on a very reasonable deal until next year, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
And then didn't they bring back Beasley or
no? They lost Beasley.
Okay, because I was actually hoping the Bulls would pick up Beasley as like a end of the bench shooting option.
Yeah. Where'd
he go?
He'll be in the Midwest. We'll talk about it.
All right, perfect.
We'll talk about it. The big acquisitions here, they got Miami Heat starting point
guard.
Oh,
I remember where he went. Okay, yeah. Never mind.
They picked up Miami Heat starting point guard that was in the finals, Gabe Vincent, for 3 years, $33 million. So that's
taking a guard away from a potential, playoff finals opponent. That's nice bit of work, and a player who fits in perfectly around their stars.
Yes. They got a guy who I believe has a little bit of untapped potential and hasn't had a fair shake in the league, and Cam Reddish, 2 years, $4.6 million. They picked up a guy who I liked from the Minnesota Timberwolves. I believe he was in Minnesota last year. Torian Prince, 1 year, $4.5 million.
Yeah, the guy who I mistakenly kept confusing with Torrey Craig because the Torian dilemma last podcast.
And another guy who I felt like hasn't had a fair shake with his former team in New Orleans, Jackson Hayes, 2 years, $4.6 million.
I was very high on him when he got drafted.
And I mean, like he may not have shown, the sort of like higher the first round pick potential that he had, but he's still a pretty good. Like he's shown that he can be an NBA player.
So looking now at the depth chart for the LA Lakers, I think, aside from the Denver Nuggets, I'm a little bit more high on the Lakers than I am the Phoenix Suns because they're more of a complete team. They're well-rounded, depth all around. They have continuity. So the starting lineup would look like D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, LeBron James, who, by the way, announced that he's going back to number 23 to honor Bill Russell.
Oh, so did he say that? Oh,
yeah,
I missed that.
That was announced
That's really cool.
Saturday. Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. So he said he kept number 6 one
Because
final
it was
season.
so stupid. Like 23 was up for grabs, and both AD and LeBron refused to take it. Like that's both of their numbers. Like
I'm happy because I have long been saying that I wanted a LeBron James 23 jersey, and
yeah,
I could never find it. All I could find was number 6. So now
right,
number
right.
6 is going to be very cheap to buy now.
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
Those are going to be on sale, and then I can get my 23 LeBron jersey. Which
I'm angry because I wanted. I like the Chicago guys always keeping 23, and I like that AD had it, and then for some dumbass reason when LeBron let him take it, he wouldn't take it in LA. So yeah.
Exactly. So they picked up a lot of guys. So like I said, Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell in the backcourt. I think that's your starting backcourt to start things off. Initially, you have Anthony Davis to start off at center, the man in the middle. LeBron James starts at the 3 spot, and then either Rui Hachimura or Jared Vanderbilt, is just starting 4, depending on matchups.
I like Vanderbilt because
I like
Rui,
Vanderbilt,
right? Because it's scoring off the bench, right? Is that what you're thinking?
Yes. Also, too, that he allows Anthony Davis to be more of a roamer on defense and be a rim protector, which is where he thrives on. So you have, let's say it's Vanderbilt to start. Then you have Rui Hachimura as your dude off the bench. You have a solid lead guard in Gabe Vincent and someone that can replace D'Angelo Russell in the starting lineup should he not be producing like he should.
Or more importantly, in the closing lineup.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's what I meant in the closing lineup.
But no, I mean, no, I'm serious though. Like, because Gabe Vincent, that to me is like the key pickup for them this
They got a very, very solid second unit there where half of those pieces could be on teams and be a starter. I look at what they did, as crazy as it sounds, value over star power, where
for once.
You probably could have brought in star power and then overpaid them.
But look what that got them with Westbrook.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It would have been just one guy. Instead, they get 4, 5, 6 guys for half the price. They were able to go with position over star power, where it's like, oh, this guy fits this role, this guy fits that role, and it can be more of a team game here, and knowing that Anthony Davis is injury prone, knowing that LeBron James is going to be maintenanced out a lot of this year, and he's older, 38, and he's to the point where he's going to miss 20 to 30 games just because they want to keep him fresh for the playoffs. You got to make sure that those guys that are on the second unit can step in and be available to play, and you're not going to do that with just one star player. So they get 4 or 5 guys. You get a better overall team game. You saw that once they made the trades at the trade deadline. And I remember this 6 months ago on the show, I told Vince that Austin Reeves should have been a starter at that time. And then he got thrust into it and he developed. You were able to develop a guy that was on the bench because of these injuries. And it wound up working out for them in the end game because at that time, Reeves was the only guy shooting because you had James out. He was injured. You had Davis out for a month. He was injured. It was just this thing that they kind of lucked out with, knowing that they had a guy that they were on the teeter with, and he blossomed, and he was a big piece in the playoffs, almost averaging like 18 to 20 points. And it made them rethink their strategy. Okay, maybe we don't need star power. Maybe we just need to surround James and Davis with pieces.
That's how they got their championship. I'm surprised they went away from that formula.
Yeah, and now we have a guy in Reeves that he's a young gem, a young chip that we can rely on. And now we just surround all them and be more of a team game, and it's going to work out better. It's going to work out better in the end game. We know we're going to do good. We can play defense. We can shoot. They can rebound. They have a bench. It's a complete team game now.
Well, they brought in a guy in Torian Prince who doesn't seem like a big acquisition, but who's a better body than someone like Trent Brown Jr., who was starting for them a few times. And then you got a serviceable guy in Gabe Vincent, who, if they end up trading D'Angelo Russell like mid-season or at some point to like get a better like front court guy to pair with AD to move him over to the 4, or just an upgrade at the point guard. I think he's a fantastic guy.
Fantastic fit, the starting point guard of a finals team.
Exactly, and that's not coming off the bench for you, which is crazy. And they got a flyer on 2 guys who I felt like haven't had a fair shake in the league in Cam Reddish and Jackson Hayes. I still think they need to sign another center, another body for
which they said they're still looking for. I think.
Yeah, they're still looking for that. I think they can still get him. I don't know if they're gonna find him in free agency. Maybe they have to make a trade down the line, but
Drummond. I'm just kidding.
Send Drummond back.
Somebody take him.
Dwight, sign Dwight. He's the best player in Taiwan. Yeah. But I apparently he's not. He clashed with Anthony Davis, so we don't know.
We had both those guys already.
Yeah.
I think at one point Dwight was supposed to be
the Lakers are not opposed to bringing people back.
No.
There's a couple people on that roster.
What do you think they do when LeBron James takes his nights off, like in those 20 or 30 games? Do you think they just plug Prince in there, or do you think they do a thing to where maybe like they add Gabe Vincent somehow to the starting five and push people up?
I think you just play another wing. You either go with Rui or you go with Cam Reddish over there.
Yeah, and you pretty much rely on the pick and roll with D'Angelo and AD or Vincent and AD.
And then you expect the Reeves to pick up the scoring a little bit because
you could also go Gabe Vincent to be the lead guard. D'Angelo sliding over to the 2 and Austin Reeves playing the 5 because he does have a little bit of size.
The 3,
playing the 3. That's what I meant. Sorry.
That's what I was thinking. And maybe they just put Vincent and then slide everybody.
They have options. That's the thing. They have options.
They finally have optionality.
Yeah. It's good. So
really good. And like you said, Taurean Prince was a good pickup.
Just the guard took was James and Davis to get hurt for them to do this.
Yeah. They did lose out, like I said, like Malik Beasley, but then again, he was out of their rotation by the time playoff times came around towards the end of the season. He wasn't playing whatsoever. He was supposed to be another guy that can not create, but like be a shooter for them off the bench. That was not the case. He was starting for them initially, and then like Bakley was saying that you felt like Reeves should have been starting, and obviously that was the correct choice. They didn't let go of Reeves like they let go of Caruso, who I felt like should have stayed.
Well, they had an advantage in Reeves in that he was a restricted free agent, so they could have matched any offer. Therefore, they put out, through the whisper vines there that they would match any offer.
You would have thought that some other team like the Rockets would have given him the max contract.
You definitely would have thought that like it doesn't make. He's a $20 million a year player that the Lakers got for like $11 million a year or whatever. 13, 12.
You would have thought
you gave $20 million to Dylan Brooks. You're trying
man. Why not throw that?
It doesn't make more sense.
Have Austin Reeves. Yeah.
If I'm the Rockets,
you would have thought they would have just take a bounce on the flyer and see if they match it or not. At least try to.
Normally that's what happens. Someone would do it.
Was there really a competition to get Dylan Brooks for $20 million for 4 years? No, I don't think there was any takers for them. They were betting against themselves. If I were the Rockets, I would have first got Austin Reeves, see if I could have signed him for $20 million. Same contract you gave Dylan Brooks, give that to Austin Reeves. Force the Lakers to match it. Now you handicap them. Now they can't go after Gabe Vincent. Now they can't go after all these depth guys that they just got. The only reason they got that was because they were able to get guys like D'Lo and Austin Reeves on the lesser contract.
They lucked out so much because of that Reeves not being able.
One of the advantages of being a big market team and having probably one of the greatest players of all time, top 3 at least, in LeBron James on your franchise. You're the LA Lakers. Players are willing to take a discount to be on your team and be in a contending situation. They almost made it to the finals, then went to the Western Conference Finals. I wouldn't be surprised to see Denver Lakers rematch in the West Finals. But
one quick thing on that. I heard, I don't know who, maybe I should have Googled this, Austin Reeves' agent is, but a lot of times what happens in those restricted contracts when they go past, when everyone gets signed in free agency and you're just kind of waiting out there and eventually like somebody throws them an offer sheet, is that agent pushes, the other general manager's buttons for, hey, if you want so-and-so player who's also on my roster,
Aaron Riley.
Right, like Aaron Riley. So he's not really established. He doesn't have that sort of pull, and I think that's what hurt Austin in the end, is that he wasn't able to go back with that, scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, or like if you don't do this, like I'll come back and I won't let you have a shot at so and so player. And so Austin didn't get that like favor offer sheet, from a team at the end of free agency.
Yeah. But on the other end, he gets to play for a star power team like the Lakers, namesake. He's one of the rising guys on the team. He could probably still get like more money towards the end of this year out of added endorsements, and he's a big name on that team where he's getting his name out there.
I'm sure he's happy, like good, and he's got good money at least. I'm just saying the Lakers really lucked out.
It seems like a compromise to me.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's just in the happy scenario, and honestly, it's a case of like the grass isn't always greener.
Right,
and Austin Reeves strikes me as a dude that's like, I'm still getting a lot of money. I can live off of this. I don't like what's a few extra.
Yeah, he definitely compared to. He's not going to be bitter about it. It's just that
exactly.
What could have happened didn't, and the Lakers lucked out. So.
Exactly. So let's move on to another team, and we're going to try to pick up the pace a little bit more because we still have 5 more teams I want to cover before we and this, and we are almost at an hour and a half. So going over to the Eastern Conference, another team that was able to re-sign and bring back their free agents, the Milwaukee Bucks. So we're going to start things off. They were able to bring back Chris Middleton for 3 years, $102 million. He declined his $40 million player option to be a free agent this offseason. They brought him back. I think he's irreplaceable. I think you need to have him on this team. The reason why they were struggling a little bit was because he was coming back from injury and he wasn't there. You see, look, Giannis is probably the best player in basketball, if not second best player in basketball currently. But Chris Middleton is their go-to guy to get the last-minute buckets on there. Like right now, one of the flaws in Giannis's game is he's not the best shot creator and bucket getter like that. He's not a Middleton. He's not a Kobe type of dude. But
Chris Middleton's a proven clutch player.
Exactly.
Even going back to when they were a first round out against the Celtics, he was hitting like near half court game tying shots.
Exactly.
So,
then
he takes the pressure off of Giannis, and where Giannis can just play his game because Chris Middleton's going to be able to shoot damn well from anywhere, shoot from three, shoot from inside. He's their shot shooter, and then when he's not there, it forces Giannis to force shots that he normally doesn't take. He can go on the inside. He can rebound. He can get those short-range shots and just focus on that.
Mm-hmm. So they also brought back Brook Lopez, a guy who looked like could have gotten a bigger deal and could have went to Houston. He was linked to Houston. Be a dude that signs over there, be another veteran that they wanted to include with their younger core, help build up the team. I thought he was like crucial for them to bring him back just as much as Middleton, because without him, I feel like you're not a championship contender. Yeah. He brings so much, not only with his rim protection, but being able to spread the floor and being the perfect fit next to Giannis. They got him on a 2-year, $48 million deal, so they're paying him $24 million per year, which, like, honestly, just give him the money.
They had to, because Houston fully expected to get him. And Milwaukee just couldn't let that happen.
And then they went and brought his brother in too.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm getting to them, Bakley. I'm going down the line. They also brought back Jay Crowder on the team for a 1 year, $3.1 million deal. And that's a good pickup for them. That's a good guy to, if he's not starting for you at the 4. He's a good guy to be like kind of that PJ Tucker type dude.
No, very good, low money, low risk player to add, because he didn't seem to match, didn't click with Mike Budenholzer, who's no longer there. Mm-hmm. So give him a shot with the new head coach and see if it clicks.
Yeah, Adrian Griffin, former Chicago Bull and former assistant head coach to many separate teams. They brought back AJ Green, who didn't play much for them, but he shot 41, almost 42% from threes across 345 minutes played. They got him on a 3 years, $6.3 million. First year is guaranteed. It's a 2-way deal the last year, so it's not a deal breaking. We're talking about Malik Beasley. He was signed to the Milwaukee Bucks. The guy, I feel like he's going to fit perfectly for what the Bucks need at the 2-guard position. They got him for 1 year, $2.7 million, which isn't terrible. And then you like you mentioned, Bakley, they brought in Brook Lopez's twin brother. Robin Lopez is the second time in their careers where they've been on the same team. They got him for 1 year, $3.1 million. Captain Hook is leaving the Cavaliers, joining the Milwaukee Bucks.
The best part of which is the return of those WWE skits between him, Brook, and Giannis. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm loving it. I'm glad about that. And
I think bringing him in allows them to do more with Bobby Portis.
Yes. I think now Bobby Portis is a little bit expendable in the sense where like you can like dangle him out there and like be that character.
Right, if you need at the trade. Yeah,
if you need to add something.
Right now he's like the backup. He's still the backup center, but then he can play the 4 at the same time.
He's the backup big for Giannis and Brook.
Yeah.
So whenever one of them is injured or one of them has to sub out, he's usually the dude. And that's what I love so much about Bobby Portis, which is why I wish the Bulls never traded him away. I thought he would have been a great complementary piece to whatever they were building because he was still on the Zach LaVine, Lowry marketing teams.
Counterpoint, his crazy eyes haunted my nightmares, and I am able to sleep better since he left.
So the Bucks had a really solid offseason. They brought back their key guys. They added a guy in Malik Beasley and Robin Lopez that I think is going to add. They were like around the edges type moves, but great moves nonetheless. You still have True Holiday. You still have Giannis. This is a great team. The minute they trade Grayson Allen, I can start rooting for them again. But until then, I'm always going to be rooting against the Bucks because fuck Grayson Allen.
I totally overlooked. Yeah, I totally overlooked that they still had Grayson Allen. I forgot about that.
And he's in the starting lineup.
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry because we didn't pod early enough. We never actually got a chance to talk about how hilarious it was that their fucking season ended in the first round against the 8 seed with the ball in the hands of Grayson Allen, who wasn't able to put up a shot as the fucking buzzer sounded.
That was the
amazing.
best way. That was the best way for them to go out.
That was the most hilarious fucking thing, man. Holy shit.
Well, and on top of that, it was the Heat who lost their first game in the play-in, and had to win twice afterwards just to make it in. And they're the team that winds up going to the finals, and they're the team that everybody's talking about getting Damian Lillard because of it.
Because of this upset.
Yeah.
Fucking Grayson Allen, man. It's the Grayson Allen fucking dominoes falling all over the league.
Yeah.
How that man didn't put the fucking shot up, dude. Oh, that was terrible.
But then again, we can talk about how that Bucks team allowed Butler to score a basket in 0.7 seconds.
That's true, too. I forgot about that shot.
Yeah.
The 0.7 second catch and put up. Yeah.
Oh, but crazy. So
they have a new coach now, so maybe they won't make those.
Shout out to Adrian Griffin. I like Adrian.
Hell
Griffin.
yeah, it's cool.
He was a guy that I was rooting for the Bulls to sign before they got Billy Donovan abruptly, because he was still with OKC and he wasn't available, and then all of a sudden he was.
Right.
So
and his son, also beating the Bulls in a similar shot with that catch and shoot at the rim. Fucking AJ Griffin. But props to senior. Yeah.
So let's move on. Let's go on to the Dallas Mavericks. Going back to the Western Conference, we have we have what they did. So they brought back Kyrie Irving, which is the big deal here. They got him for 3 years, $120 million. I think you had to bring him back, given all you gave up for him.
That salvages their trade last year, and that doesn't make it a complete disaster.
Yeah, until Kyrie's kind of done with the scenario and requests a trade again.
Yeah,
we'll see.
We'll see.
I thought they had an underrated offseason because they also picked up Seth Curry, 2 years, $9.2 million. That's a reunion.
Seth Curry to Dallas,
the return of Seth Curry. I think he's a perfect guy to pair up next to Luka and Kyrie.
Yeah, just a knockdown shooter who can actually create off the dribble a little more than people realize, to be the person who gets that catch and shoot opportunity against either a closeout or weaker defenders. That's great. Yeah,
I enjoyed him in Philly. He was a great piece there.
Oh, Philly was
shooting
really
at that too, and he was averaging 15 to 20 points whenever he got a chance.
Yeah, losing him in the Simmons Harden deal was a big blow to Philly.
I thought he was. I thought he was a steal for them in that trade for Brooklyn, and then he played with Kyrie. So Seth Curry has experience playing with Kyrie and Luka. So you have another great 3-point shooter, which is what you need to surround those guys with, defensive guys and 3-point shooters. But shout out to them. They were able to get Grant Williams for the Boston Celtics in the sign and trade deal. 4 years, $54 million. I think that's an underrated deal right there for them as well.
Talk about that. A guy who hung out on that restricted free agent market for quite a while before they worked this deal out with Boston. So great pickup.
They brought back Dwight Powell, 3 years, $12 million. I think that was a good deal right there. 4 years per year is $4 million.
And again, they kind of had to keep that center to have something.
Now we see why they did that. After letting
right. Well, because they weren't going to bring back Christian Wood, and at least they did salvage 2 second-round picks out of it, which is good.
They were able to pick up Rashawn Holmes as well, former Sacramento King as well.
Very underrated guy that can get you 10 and 10 points of rebounds.
He fell off a bit in the past year or so, but there's hope that he can bounce back. He was going through some stuff off the court.
Speaking of bouncing back, Dante Exum's making his return to the NBA.
Hey man, you know me, bro. That's one of my 6-7 point guards. I'm all in. Let's do it. One of these guys has got to work out. Apparently, he's been able to rebound his game after all the injuries, so he's rehabilitated his game in Europe. Kind of like Sean Livingston, he no longer, after all the injuries, he doesn't have the same sort of athleticism, and he's learned how to play a different sort of game. But again, at 6'7", you just look back to Sean Livingston, you look at other guys who fit that mold, through the history of the NBA, Penny Hardaway, etc. And you can do a lot with the mid-post game. You can still be a creator. You can lock down on defense. So I'm happy to see.
If Dante Exum gives them anything off the bench, it'd be a win.
Huge plus.
Yeah. So then they still got two guys who I really love on their team, and Jaden Hardy and Josh Green, two younger guys who is going to play in the.
Josh Green, man, basically mini Alex Caruso. Watch a Dallas Mavericks game, and you will know what I'm talking about.
I love Josh Green, man. I love Josh Green.
Yeah.
They still got big guys like JaVale McGee and Maxi Kleber on the team as well. They have Tim Hardaway Jr. Shout out to Tim Hardaway Jr. One of those dudes that for some reason I just like. Yeah. Why? I don't fucking know. Maybe it was his like duel that he had with Dion Waiters in the rookie showcase like a few years back. But I've been a fan of Tim Hardaway Jr.
He's a very good shooter from downtown, and then and he's been a guy that's always been the number 3 guy, and he still can get you like 15 points a game if you want to. It's just that you don't know how high his ceiling is because he's never had that chance to. But then when he was the number 2 guy to Luka, he was averaging 20 points and he was at his highest. But for some reason, I feel like they just want to keep him at a certain spot. And maybe
he's kind of been like not performed quite at the level of his contract at times, and he's kind of been in the background. But I think he gained a lot of respect. One of the reasons I think you might like him, Vince, when you say you can't figure out why, because he's been a guy all these past few years through everything who just puts his head down and goes to work. He's just done it night in and night out. And okay, he hasn't lived up to the contract. He hasn't complained. He's been moved to number 2, number 3, number 4, off the bench again, back to starting. And he just keeps coming in night after night and doesn't talk and just plays the game and, get some respect.
I think the best case scenario for him would be to be a dude coming off the bench, because you have scoring and playmaking and shot creation from Kyrie and Luka. That's your starting backcourt. I think you need defense and in the starting lineup with them. So I think you start Josh Green with them at small forward. And then I think you go Grant Williams as the starting power forward with them as well. And then you go Dwight Powell. Now you have a bunch of defense and you have a little bit of shooting with Grant Williams and Josh Green.
And Grant Williams gives them a bit of that defensive dog that they kind of need again, especially having lost Darian.
I'm going to make both of them. I'm going to make both of them misses both free throws.
You need a little bit of that. Yeah.
It was almost like a saving grace bringing him in, because it's like, he invested so much on just bringing back Kyrie Irving, and there's still that doubt that is he going to be able to work with Luka, because that Mavericks team was doing very well. They bring Kyrie Irving in, and then what did they get? 2-11, and then they missed the
problem with that though wasn't really Kyrie. It was like Luka kept going out. Like they never really played together much.
It was
the games that Kyrie played. They did all right, but
So I think they're gonna be fine. I think they'll be okay. Then you go into their depth. They have Jaden Hardy off the bench. You still have Rashawn Holmes, who they picked up. JaVale McGee is somebody still there.
I was hoping you would just skip right over that. He has not worked out for them.
Maxi Kleber, a guy who I still very much like, a big guy that can spread the floor.
He started at times for them.
Yeah, Seth Curry, we talked about him already. Dante Exum, and like I said, JaVale McGee could be a dude because he's going to be a filler dude in the trade. If you can include a Tim Hardaway Jr.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Same with Tim Hardaway. Like his contract, can really be useful to them if they can find a trading partner.
Exactly. Not only that, I'm just so curious to see what this team is going to be. And again, Kyrie Irving could request a trade at the trade deadline, maybe a year from now in the offseason.
Kyrie's more of the hey, I need to go on a walkabout for 6 months type of guy. I don't know if
so
overall, he just signed that deal with the Chinese shoe company. Where he's making a lot, and he's part owner with that now. So it's like, I feel like
maybe he'll go join Dwight Howard.
Hey, Dwight Howard can come. He can come to the team. So we'll see.
But I definitely will get a chance to finally see Kyrie and Luka hopefully on the floor together, what that looks like. And like you said, off the ball around them, this is a better fit now. You got Grant Williams who can shoot and he can play defense. They've got Seth Curry, who's great off the ball, to shoot, and you've got the progression of Josh Green, who's exactly what they need, and was a rookie last year, right, or second year player? I'm forgetting. He was pretty young.
Josh Green, I think he was a rookie.
Yeah, I think he's a rookie. He was a rookie. Now you've got him with a bit of experience, and he's shown like incredible potential. I think he had this like one of those top 5 in the league in deflections per game type of guy. So,
all right. So like I said, we'll see what happens. The only thing they really lost this offseason was Christian Wood, but they got 2 second round picks. He was a dude that was like in the doghouse with Jason Kidd. So
he was hurt a lot. He was hurt a lot too, and then Dwight Powell started majority of the games there, and he seemed to work better with Luka and with Irving.
Exactly.
And I think really the only thing with that team is going to be is just like I said, how Irving and Luka are going to work together. Who's going to be the primary bar handler? If there's going to be,
what it's going to be? It's going to be the Carmelo Anthony Allen Iverson show that it was in Denver. And those are some of my favorite teams. So I think if anything, it's going to be entertaining basketball. So let's move on. We're not gonna talk about these guys as much as I wanted to because we're already long on time. So and I do want to get to the Bulls. So we're gonna briefly talk about what the briefly mention what the Warriors did. They brought back Draymond Green, 4 years, $100 million, $25 million per year. There was threats that he could maybe go to the Sacramento Kings, but they ended up going and re-signing Harrison Barnes. There was maybe he goes back to his home of Detroit and signs with the Pistons. But I think this is the right deal. They ended up shipping out Jordan Poole. I think it was either Draymond or Poole. People can say that, Jordan Poole has the higher potential, yada, yada. He's a younger player. But without Draymond Green, despite his lack of offensive ability, towards the end of his career, I think without him, you're not a championship contender. What he brings defensively and playmaking, I think, is very crucial for them. They were able to pick up for the veteran minimum, Corey Joseph and Dario Saric, two solid veterans. I think they're going to help the team. So once again, I don't think they're too high up there, but they do have Chris Paul. They made that trade. We don't know what's going to happen with the lineup situation. Is he going to start? Is he going to come off the bench? I think he should be a bench player. Maybe he gets split for someone similar to what they did with D'Lo. You mentioned that in our last podcast.
And we had that bet, though, that I said he wouldn't be, at least at the beginning of the season. So
so there's that.
But yeah, he can be used like D'Lo in a trade. But Saric is actually a really good pickup right at the end of free agency for them. He can stretch the floor. He
was a guy that I thought the Bulls should pick up.
Yeah.
So
good backup big man. Yeah.
So there's that. Another team that did solid moves in free agency was the Cleveland Cavaliers. They got Max Strus in the sign and trade with the Miami Heat. They locked him down for 4 years with the contract being worth $63 million. They re-signed Karis LeVert, 2 years, $32 million. Isn't terrible. Like I mentioned, George Niang coming from Philadelphia. They picked him up. I'm trying to see the contract here. I don't see the contract worth, but they got him. I would imagine it's like a vet minimum deal or close to it. Wouldn't expect it to be no more than 2 years. They acquired center Damian Jones from the Utah.
Yeah, they gave Niang got a good deal of money. He got
3 year, $26 million.
Yeah,
there you go. And he requested a trade from Philly too, like he was going to get it.
Hey man, Korkmaz has been requesting a trade from Philly every other year for the past 6 years.
Like I said,
he finally got shipped out.
Yeah, they acquired center Damian Jones from the Utah Jazz in exchange for cash considerations. So that was an option. They got Ty Jerome signing with them, so they have the 6'5" guard to add to their perimeter depth. So they had a solid offseason.
The big pickup is Max Strus, stealing him.
Max Strus, bringing back Karis LeVert, even if he's not a solid guy for you long term, he's going to be a trade chip that you can't shore up.
Do you think that's them giving up on Isaac Okoro?
It kind of has to be, man.
Yeah.
They need.
I don't think they're giving up on
to
Isaac.
Take that spot. They needed Okoro to take that spot
because that's the same spot Okoro has been.
I think it's going to be
like a defensive guy, but he doesn't add any.
He wasn't able to shoot.
No. It's going to be a game by game case scenario. When they need scoring and shooting, it's going to be Max Strus. When they need more defense, it's going to be Okoro. I think Strus is the starting small forward for them now, and I think they addressed the small forward position, which is what they desperately lacked in the playoffs. That was a big handicap for them. But I thought they had a great, solid season.
And
so,
this allows Levert to kind of be the guy off the bench because he was
a much better
starting,
role where he can score,
6
come
man,
in to score.
yeah. And so all around, this is still a very solid team, and I still like that core four in the starting lineup of why am I trying to blank on names? Jared Allen, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
I love Evan Mobley so much.
Yeah,
I'm big on Garland.
I love Garland too.
Yeah.
I love their
solid
young
team, and I think again Max Strus fills that question mark at the 3, putting Levert in a better role off the bench and kind of putting Okoro on the back burner.
You gotta fill 2 spots at once with that. Hug him there, moving Levert to the 6-man role, and you cover 2 with 1 stone.
And then finally, the final team we're going to be covering here, we're going to close things off with Bosch and I's Chicago Bulls. There were some questions giving the Bulls, will they bring back Vucevic? Should they bring back Vucevic? What are they going to do with Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, Javonte Green? Guys had player options that they could or could not pick up. Andre Drummond chose to pick up his player option. Derrick Jones Jr. chose not to pick up his player option, which was a surprising move.
I was really hoping that would be the other way around.
Yeah. But you know, it is what it is. He has yet to sign, so maybe they still bring him back, even still. Yeah. But then again, I don't think he's going to play much, especially who the Bulls picked up in free agency. And also with the Lonzo Ball situation, we weren't sure. Like some Bulls fans were on the notion that they should just blow it up and rebuild and start over from scratch, because we saw that the big 3 of Vooch, Levine, and DeRozan just didn't make any sense, especially with the Lonzo Ball injury. They announced that Lonzo Ball will be out for the majority of the season, if not the entire season altogether. We won't see him until next year. The Bulls applied for the 7-player exception, which they received. It's going to be a total of $10.2 million, which the caveat is they can use a player to go over the tax using that exception. They don't have to use the full exception, but they could. But they can use that on free agents. It can only be a 1-year deal, or if they use it in the trade, so they can package that up with, like, let's say a Kobe White or like someone else on the team. If they did want to make a trade for another player that's on an expiring contract, like let's say a James Harden, I'm not vying for that. I'm not proposing that that's what the Bulls do, but like it has to be an expiring contract. So that's one thing.
But that wouldn't work. But they could pick up, let's say, I don't know. Let's say Phoenix wants to give up on Christian Wood, or there's a couple of players around the league who signed 1-year deals. You know,
Kelly Oubre is a guy that's
Kelly
still
Oubre
in free agency.
is still out there. You can sign him in free agency, or you can trade for somebody in the final year of their contract who makes that 10.2 or less. And so that would be a way to use it.
Can you do that at any point during the season? Right?
Yes.
At any point during the season.
The only thing is, so it's an exception. So this is for the listeners out there too. The way the salary cap works is, so an exception means that you're given the ability to sign someone even though you technically can't because you're over the salary cap. So it's an exception to that rule. You're over the cap, so you're done. But here's an exception. That's what the mid-level exception is that gives you...
The Bulls still haven't used the entirety of their mid-level.
Which we'll get to. And then there's a biennial exception, which again you get every other year. There's lower mid-level exceptions as you enter this luxury tax, etc. And so this is another exception, meaning you can now still exceed your salary cap within this exception, but it still counts towards the tax. So the question is, do the Bulls, who are notoriously, averse to spending money to the point where they're paying into the luxury tax, actually use this exception, because it would put them into the tax?
So Arturas Karnisovas, when he was doing his press conference with the Bulls media, he did say that he has the green light from ownership to go into the tax.
Of course he did.
If the Bulls were a contending team, which would mean like top 4, top 6 seed. And I think the best case scenario for this exception is to wait and see how the Bulls are doing, especially getting into the trade deadline. You don't need to use it right now. I think this is they did their due diligence. I think that's the smartest thing they could have done. Hey, let's get this exception. Will they use it? Who knows? But it's good to know that they have it in their back pocket to use, especially if the Bulls start off and they're actually surprising everyone's expectations. They're actually like in contention for a top 6, top 8 seed with this team, right? So, and then on top of that, like let's say you go into the buyout market, there's guys that are being bought out and available. You can now offer them the exception.
More money than most other contender teams because you have this exception to give out, which is what I think they got it for.
I think that's what they have
to
do.
Deadline.
So let's talk about what they actually did in the offseason. They re-signed Nikola Vucevic for 3 years, $60 million. A lot of people were complaining that there was too much, but I think $20 million for Vuce per year is very reasonable, especially the first year. Obviously, he's going to be here with the team, but it's also a very tradable contract, especially after the first year, 2 years.
Well, you look around the league at like what Isaiah Stewart just got from Detroit, and big men are getting a lot more money now. Oh,
and we have
players in general.
Yeah, and we also have, like you said, players in general. We have to take into account that the salary cap keeps rising every year. So this is the norm. Like a $20 million deal per year right now is probably equivalent to like 12 million or 10 million a few years back, especially with the spike with the TV revenue and everything like that. The Chicago Bulls also re-signed Kobe White. And in a very solid deal, they got him for 3 years, $36 million with an incentive.
Is a great deal. I think.
Great deal, a steal of a deal. This is an Austin Reeves type steal of a move for the Bulls, because I was anticipating he's going to want 15 to 20 mil per year, but you got him 3 years, 36 mil. Obviously, there's incentives that can make his contract go up to 40 million, depending if he meets those criteria. But you brought back Kobe, a guy who was outplaying Ayo Dosunmu for like that starting point guard spot. And
I still think they lost that play-in game against the Heat because they pulled Kobe White and tried to put Patrick Beverly back in, and it didn't work out. Because Kobe's
I think they lost that game because they didn't have DeMar DeRozan's daughter in the stands.
Well, that was before the game. So once they'd already made that error in judgment, during the game, this is what lost them the game.
Yes,
so, in that fourth quarter, because Kobe's now actually a defensive at times plus.
Oh player. Yeah. And he's a solid 3-point shooter. He's probably one of their best 3-point shooters on the team. Honestly, with Lonzo Ball being out, unless their next signing, who I'll talk about right now, and plays very well, I think you start Kobe White and you let Ayo Dosunmu come off the bench. Which, by the way, Ayo Dosunmu still is out there. They extended the qualifying offer. He hasn't signed the qualifying offer. He hasn't signed with any other team.
I think they're trying to work out like a little bit longer deal with a lot less money, and Ayo's team is probably waiting out there to see is there other offers that are going to come available. I think this probably ends with, from the Bulls' perspective, ideally like a 3-year, $11 million deal, but I'd even
that'd be the ideal. Option. Yeah, that'd be the ideal scenario. I wouldn't be surprised to just see Ayo like sign the qualifying offer, play 1 year for $5 million, and then be an unrestricted free agent in the offseason, because there were teams interested in him. Obviously, didn't pick him up. He was linked to like Detroit.
Ayo would actually, because his contract came up earlier than normal, he would actually still be restricted next year.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So
I think they got very lucky with Kobe White, because he's a guy that can still grow. But when you look at where he was drafted and how he was playing, you guys seeing him more, he definitely started to get better. But other teams, they're not going to pay $15-20 million for a guy that they really don't know what he's going to do. But the Bulls know what he has. They're the one that drafted him.
Yeah,
and the Bulls could have matched.
You got him for 12.
They could take that gamble and be like, okay, we're going to offer him less. And if he, just like you said, if he goes and signs something else, they can match it. But if he doesn't, then he'll just go with what you guys offered him, and that's what happened, and it works out great for you guys.
They signed him very early in free agency too, which was very surprising. So it seems like they worked this out early on. Maybe Kobe just likes the scenario.
Yeah, maybe he just wanted to stay and knows that he can grow and get better.
Austin Reeves. It's Austin Reeves all over again with the Lakers. Yeah. So there's that. The big name that they went and signed is a guy that they stole from their division rival and next door neighbor in the Milwaukee Bucks. That's Javon Carter, who I was not expecting him, but he's coming back to his hometown of Chicago. He's going to play for the Bulls. I'm trying to find the numbers on here, but I don't have the numbers on here. If you guys can look that up real quick. But I think they signed him for 3 years, $20 million, if I'm not mistaken.
3 years.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. But 3 years, 20 mil, I believe.
Yeah. So they picked him up, who honestly, I think he's a great fit. Like, they lost Patrick Beverly. He signed with Philadelphia. Have fun with him there, Bakley. Shout out to him.
Wow.
He did want 21. He was a little like, oh, I guess I'll wear 22, but I ideally I want to wear number 21. Wonder who was wearing that one for Philly. But they picked up Javon Carter, a guy that can play defense for them, a guy that at times was starting for the Milwaukee Bucks when Drew Holiday was out and was the lead guard for them. A guy that ideally would be exactly what Phoenix would be looking for to be one of their lead point guards, because they don't need a star caliber point guard to play for that team when you have who you have. But Javon Carter brings defense, he brings intensity. He shot over 40% from the 3-point line last year, adds shooting, which is what the Bulls desperately needed last year. They addressed their point guard concerns as well. So either you start Javon Carter or you start Kobe White, and now you have that going. Alex Caruso is just kind of like that positionless dude that you play in the starting lineup. He can play 1 through 4. At times he was their starting 4 for them instead of Patrick Williams. So we'll see what they do there.
Well, on here, looking at it on here, it has the starting lineup being Caruso, Levine, DeRozan, Williams, and Vukovic.
Yeah, it's basically last year's starting lineup, but I think they'll adjust that because Caruso, you're going to limit his minutes. He, probably.
I want him coming off the bench.
Yeah,
I want Patrick Williams starting because you need some size, and I think you have him coming off the bench. I think, like I said,
well, I wouldn't mind their other signing, who I don't think we included.
We haven't talked about it. Like that's what I'm going with next. They got Torrey Craig from the Phoenix Suns, another 3-and-D guy, 1 year, $3 million. That's a steal to get Torrey Craig.
Great.
I think he's underrated. I think he's going to be a solid guy that can play either forward positions. They can spell Kobe. Not Kobe Patrick. This is the first time since they had like this iteration of the DeMar DeRozan, Vucevic, Levine team that Patrick Williams is actually going to have a dude coming off the bench that actually is going to have some size. I feel like this is going to help him. Matter of fact, you could probably go crazy and have a lineup with both Torrey Craig and Patrick Williams.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. I think, during when DeRozan sits, you can totally have Patrick play a wing position, have Torrey Craig at the 4, and, that would allow Patrick Williams to go to what most think and he thinks is his more natural, or at least his future position in the NBA at the 3. You could definitely do that.
I mean, his rookie season, he played the 3.
Yeah.
So it makes all the sense in the world. I liked what the Bulls did. Like, do I think they had a great, a fantastic offseason? No. Was it an A+? No. But it was a solid B-, B+. They brought back, look, a lot of people were like, oh, just let Vucevic go, use the cap space. That's people that don't understand the scenario. If they let Vucevic go, they're still over the salary cap. They can't use that money to bring him back. It makes all the sense in the world to bring back Vucevic because you're not going to be able to replace him. Now you're going to have to use the mid-level exception, the biannual exception to replace Vucevic, and it's not even going to bring you the amount of offense.
I don't want to compare it. It's kind of like James Harden, where it's like you would let him go, but you can't bring anybody back to kind of fill that hole.
He's less problematic than James, though.
Yeah. I'm just saying from the scenario where...
Oh, yeah, very similar scenario. Yeah. Very similar scenario in that regards. Ideally, in the perfect world for the Sixers, they just re-signed Harden for like a $20 million per year deal for multiple years, and they call it a fucking day. And they could have addressed some other things in free agency, but they weren't able to.
But the same idea that if you lose this player, there's nothing you can do with that money because you're already over the cap.
Exactly.
So might as well.
They brought back Kobe White. Like I said, Io DeSumo is still floating out there in limbo. I believe he's going to be back with the Bulls. Either he's going to sign the qualifying offer for 1 year, or he's going to work out a multi-year deal for less money for the Bulls and bring back. I don't want Io to go, but I think this is going to be a perfect scenario for him because he's going to be able to not have to worry.
He won't
about
have to be the damn point guard anymore.
No,
he was ill.
And ironically, on his rookie year 2 years ago, I'm like, he could be a solid point guard. If we didn't have Lonzo, that's our point guard of the future. And then last season it rolls around, and it's like he completely forgot
that role
is
thrust upon him like a little too early. Like he would need, I think, a ball handling improvement to the level, like maybe not to the level of Kobe White.
He lost confidence in his shot too because he wasn't as consistent as well, so he wasn't taking them.
And he also doesn't have a secondary move at the basket. Like he doesn't have a Euro step move. He doesn't have like a stop pivot hook shot or floater. He only has that move where he like full speeds to the rim, like Maxi a few years ago before Maxi developed his shot. Like Maxi could just run full speed to the rim, and I think Io's currently on that where he only has that and he doesn't have anything else yet.
Yeah.
So if he develops a Euro step, if he develops a pivot, jump stop, something else, maybe he
floater.
Get
a reliable
this gives
floater.
him the opportunity to grow into that. You know, he can be a wing player defender right now. A wing defender, spot point guard as he grows into whatever it is.
I think that's a perfect role for him. And I think if he even turns out to be a little bit of what Javon Carter is with the Bulls, I think we'll be fucking fantastically happy with that.
I look at the Bulls, they did what they had to do and what they could do, which is okay, you know, and that they have some deficiencies. Of course, Ball's injury doesn't help because you're expecting a lot from him, but he just seems to be the guy that has the talent, is always hurt, and he's great at facilitating, and he's not going to be able to. But then you look at what they could do, and they made some good contracts. Bringing Vukovic back was just the most logical thing. You have Torrey Craig. You were able to get Kobe Brown at a good price. You were able to get Javon Carter. They're going to be basically where they were last year. I feel like maybe a little bit better,
but with a little bit better depth.
Yeah, they're going to be where they were towards the end of last year. Because at the end of last year, they were one of, like, if I'm not mistaken, top 3, top 5 defense in the NBA after the Patrick Beverley signing and after the trade deadline.
Who's now in Philadelphia on a minimum contract, by the way.
Yeah, but then again, like, you look at Javon Carter, he's going to fill
I know. I'm like, if it was a minimum contract, I was like, he could have just kept him. But no, I mean, I get it. It makes sense.
Yeah, too many guards on Chicago. That was the big issue there. Yeah. And Kobe at least has some size. People forget he's 6'5".
Yeah.
I would assume
it's just 6'5". That he has the short wingspan, so he seems smaller because of that. But yeah.
Exactly. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to what the Bulls are doing. I'm always a very optimistic Bulls fan. To my own.
I think our previous podcasts have definitely borne out our.
What do you think about the rumors that they're looking to trade Zach LaVine?
They're only going to trade Zach LaVine if they're gonna go ahead and blow things up, and no, he's not gonna be a dude that they trade.
And the packages you hear from are ludicrous. Like, these are comical packages, man. No, like, fuck you. We'll keep them. Like, yeah,
exactly.
Like,
and it's always Bleacher Report. It's always Bleacher Report and ESPN
or New York reporters floating like just dumb shit out there. Like, how about Obi Toppin and 2 second-round picks? Like, fuck
Obi Toppin's not with the Knicks anymore. He's with the Pacers.
Yeah, because he was expendable, and they traded him for next to nothing. So
exactly, and he was going to be a young piece to add to that
in the Zach LaVine trade. Get the fuck out of here, man. Zach LaVine is an all-star guard who's in the prime of his career, who despite his injury issues played 70 plus games last year, played all the back-to-backs. He can shoot from the outside, he can get to the rim. Like,
I don't trade Zach LaVine.
High efficiency shooter, like a high efficiency gunner, is not very common.
No, exactly. And this is how ludicrous it is, because then you look at, like, people are like, oh, Zach LaVine could be a missing piece for, like, a championship contender. He could be like the second, third option.
He definitely could. But then what are we going to offer for him, right? And then they say, then they offer what you were about to say. And they're like, oh, bad. He could be like the missing piece we need to contend. Oh, but the Bulls want. He's not really that good. How about we give you a bag of peanuts and like 2 second-round picks? Like, no. What?
Exactly. Now, like, the rumor that I heard floating around is that Chicago could be a landing destination for Tyler Hero, and it'd be a 3-team scenario where the Blazers get LaVine, the Heat get Lillard, and we get Tyler Hero.
What
and
the fuck is
picks.
That? No, those middling ass draft picks. But no,
I like Tyler Hero, but I don't want to replace Zach with Tyler Hero.
Tyler Hero and 2 first round picks 3 years down the road. No thanks.
Exactly. No, it makes no sense. So we'll see what the Bulls are going to do. I don't have much hopes aside from, I think they'll be a playing team at the bare minimum. Best case scenario, they're like a top 7 seed, especially like if things start clicking from the jump. I think they what they needed was Lonzo, because he's the one piece that makes this whole team make sense. They were the number 1 seed going into the play.
I mean, that's a bit short-sighted, Vince. What they really needed was for Jerry Reinsdorf to have a heart attack. So unfortunately, that didn't happen.
I'm not wishing ill will on anyone, regardless of how much I detest them.
I didn't say I wished it. I just say they needed it. Those are 2 different things. What they need and what we want. Needs and wants are different items.
Very fair point there.
The man is still alive, fortunate or not. and that dictates that exactly what they did, which is they used just enough money to sign Tomas Satoransky and Thaddeus Young. I mean, sorry, Javon Carter and Tory, whatever, someone. So because what does that do? That's just like the Satoransky and Young signings, where look, we added 2 solid players to a team that has massive deficiencies up and down the roster, without using our full mid-level exception or our biannual exception, and we're not entering the fucking tax, and we made a whole show of going and getting a 3rd exception that we're not going to fucking use because we didn't use the first 2 fucking exceptions. So
Bash, can I counter by saying that they flipped a 2nd-round pick and Satoransky for Lonzo Ball, and they flipped Thaddeus Young and a future first for DeMar DeRozan. So
they flipped a 2nd-round pick, Tomas Satoransky, Garrett Temple, and then forfeited another 2nd-round pick because they tampered in that to pay Lonzo Ball what no other team was willing to pay him, to get him on a sign and trade when his contract was up, because his current team wasn't going to give him that contract.
If they didn't do a sign and trade with Lonzo Ball and a sign and trade with DeMar DeRozan, they wouldn't have been able to get Alex Caruso.
Let's see. Does that? Well,
yes.
Because I don't know about that.
Yeah, because they went ahead and got Alex Caruso. They weren't able to offer him the big money contract that lured him away from LA, because
they gave him what, the mid-level, right, or part of the mid-level?
No, they gave him more than the mid-level. They gave him more than
he's getting $9 million a year. I thought the mid-level was like $9 million, around that. I could be wrong. Regardless. Yeah. But my point is, they made the moves they wanted to make because, like you said, there's a really good case for this team to be in the play-in again, and that's what you should aim for when you're in the 3rd largest market in the country.
Bosch is just very jaded and very sour on this.
You aim for that play-in tournament, because man, you can get that gate receipt money for the one home game that you might get. That's what they're going to get this year. They're going to get a home game in the play-in tournament, man.
I will say,
be very happy.
I will say, they would have gotten me if they signed Derrick Rose. I would have went to that home opener just to see Derrick Rose. And
I would have gone too, because we're fucking suckers here in Chicago, man. We sell out this goddamn stadium and we buy all their fucking merchandise.
They got their point guard from Chicago and Javon Carter.
They did. That's all you got to do is rotate a Chicago point guard, as long as there's one on the roster.
Patrick Beverly, Javon Carter.
Exactly, man. One way or another, they're gonna keep that local connection alive and sell hope to the fans, and we're gonna buy it because we're all suckers. That's what we do.
Shout out to Jabari Parker, one of the few Chicago signings that Jahlil Okafor, guys that I wanted the most to sign.
We never did get Jahlil Okafor. I was hoping.
Well, I gotta thank them for taking Parker, because that's how we got Joel Embiid, was because Parker went to the Bucks.
He went to the Bucks. Yeah. And Embiid went 3rd. But no, my point is, the Bulls did not use that full mid-level. If you go back to our preview of free agency, I said, what did I say I wanted this team to do? Use the full fucking mid-level exception. That has not been done.
They still have 2 more. I think 2 more roster spots or 3 roster spots to fill. They guys like Javonte Green is still out there. Haven't brought him back as well. Then again, I feel like, do you really have much use for Javonte Green?
I mean, at the end of your bench, an energy guy wouldn't hurt. But that's
depends on how. If you get him for a minimum, then sure, bring him back.
Yeah.
Maybe you give those minutes to Dalen Terry. I feel like you need to see what Dalen Terry is.
Did you see Dalen Terry play in Summer League? I mean, I didn't watch a lot of Summer League, but I watched enough of it to know that I did not want to see Dalen Terry.
I watched every other team's, not my team.
That's probably best for both Philly and Chicago fans. Yeah. Philly didn't even have a pick this year, so
So I mean, who the fuck did the Bulls pick up in the first round, in the second round?
Phillips.
Who?
Julian Phillips.
Shout out to Julian Phillips. I heard he balled.
He played ball, so that's a step up from
So we'll see what the Bulls do.
I like them. They're okay. They're okay.
They're solid.
They're not.
You know what they are?
Contributors. Yeah.
You know what they are? These are the Little Caesar pizza of roster transactions. Instead of going to get Giordano's or Illuminati's or get Pequods
in one of the best pizza cities in the world,
they went and get Little Caesars in your local Little Caesars. That's what they do.
You know what they probably are, that we're gonna not want to say that they are. Denzel Valentine, so Chandler Hutchison.
I don't think they'll be that. I'll say this.
Marcus Teague.
Look, I'll say this. Right now, it looks like Little Caesars pizza. but depending on how things go, this could be Kmart Little Scissors Pizza.
Sounds like mini Pip Chandler Hutchison to me, man.
We'll see. But yeah, guys, this has been a fun episode. We went very long, but you know what?
Yeah,
it was a fun episode.
Yeah.
Bakley, want to thank you once again for joining us. We finally were able to make it happen. We'll bring you on a lot more often. Instead of doing podcast episodes, we might do like countdown episodes, and we'll make that YouTube exclusive, and we'll be able to bring and do more stuff frequently, more consistently. But in the meantime, why don't you tell them where they can find you and all the Bloodline Network Entertainment content?
You can find me on Twitter at CageIQ, the handle down below. You can also find me on the Bloodline Entertainment Network on bloodlineentertainmentnetwork.com. I do some articles for them for wrestling. I do MMA. That's primarily what I do. I also do a little bit of soccer, so I cover that as well.
You're covering Messi in the United States?
No, I've been covering the Gold Cup right now, so
okay.
Doing a lot of that. You know, the USA just blew it against Panama because Robinson likes to take handballs and play like he's playing basketball instead of a sport where you can't use your hands, but he decides he wants to use it. But other than that, I primarily do MMA, cover UFC every week. I do my bet slip. I do give people bet odds. I also do my predictions every Wednesday at 5 o'clock. And yeah.
There you go. We'll have all that information in the description down below of the episode. We do that every single time. Bosh, let them know where they can find you on social media. And of course, let's talk about Shy Care.
As always, don't follow me on social media. But if you have to, I guess Instagram, System Lord without the E, SYSTMLORD. And then always shy-care.org, CHI-CARE.org. Lot more distributing going on of a lot more supplies, toys for some of those migrant families that have been shipped into the city. And then, of course, as always, food and supplies to the homeless and unhoused people all over the city, wherever they live. There's another food handout that's done at one of the Blue Line stations every Thursday. Check it out. You can help in the warehouse in the suburban Chicago and Bensonville. Go on a route to dropping off food around the city or wherever you find your spot, or just check out the videos, get some inspiration, drop some cash into the donation box.
Yeah, you can definitely donate. You don't have to be a local Chicago resident or citizen or whatever to just go ahead and help out. There's other.
But I do want to say, if you don't live here, or whether you do or don't live here, and you watch some of those videos and you see how much of a difference it makes and how easy it is, maybe you get some inspiration on how to do this, and you pack your own. Maybe you put a group together, because that's all this was in the beginning. It's just a group of guys who got together and got who they knew and got some money and bought some supplies. And then you just go out and you can see how it's done and what type of things are needed. Check out the Instagram page for Shy Care, and you'll see how to do that maybe where you live.
Yeah, we'll plug all that. We put that always in the description of every single episode, so make sure you always check in, if not in this episode, in previous episodes as well. As for me, you can follow me on social media at SESvince on Instagram and Twitter. The link tree in my bio will take you to everything Straight Talk. It gives you direct links to the Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify. Links are all there. The YouTube is there at youtube.com/SESvince. Subscribe to us there. Turn on bell notifications so you know when we drop a brand new episode. I like to go ahead and do the video versions there, so you'll find them there. We also have the video version of the podcast available on Spotify, so I encourage you guys to follow us there. Download the episodes whenever a new one drops. It helps let us know that you actually enjoy the content we put out. You could also follow the podcast on Instagram at @straighttalk_pod and go ahead and follow us there, and you'll know when we drop a brand new episode. If not, like I said, just search SESvince in your podcast feed. You'll be able to find us there. Best way. But, guys, let's wrap this up. Let's call it a fucking episode. This has been fun. Bakley, again, thank you. We'll bring it back for sure. Bosh, we got episode 50 next up. Gotta find something special to do.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Something real special, like crowdfunding some tickets for the Rhinestores on the next submersible trip down to see the Atlantic. That's
exactly. We'll have something lined up. So for Basharat,
see, I'm giving out love. I want to send them on a trip somewhere nice.
Just they don't come back or have no content.
I didn't say any of that, man. You're going way too far, Vince.
All
I don't
right.
know what's wrong with you.
So for Basharat, Bakley, and myself, this has been the Straight Talk Podcast. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Later, y'all.
Peace.